All right, everybody, welcome to another episode of Break the Rules, the Break the Rules live stream. I am your host, Lev Polyakov at LevPo on Twitter. It is a great pleasure to be here with Jack Murphy. He is an author, a great inspiration. I'm not really sure what specific title I would put on Mr. Murphy, but just reading his book From Democrat to Deplorable, which I highly recommend everybody do. The full title being Democrat to Deplorable: Why 9 Million Obama Voters Ditched the Democrats and Embraced Donald Trump. Just that, plus all the things that were in the book as far as how you came about, how you took care of so many kids in D.C. when it came to the charter school that you were operating, and what happened from there. I would definitely love to get into the whole thing with you as far as your men's organization, Liminal Order. So I think there's going to be plenty of wonderful things for us to discuss here. And of course, with us we have Giovanni Pennacchietti, Bella, and the great Tom Sauer joining us back in.
Once
and you
again,
guys, yes, and you guys
one
are
of our
friends,
most
right?
controversial guests, believe it or not.
Which
Yes.
is so weird because I'm so not controversial. I feel that I am.
But the chat always lights up when you're around. It's hilarious.
I think I just piss people off because I just break their dreams. I guess I don't know. Sometimes I break some of their dreams. I suppose.
and the rules is we said it.
Break the rules.
But Mr. Murphy, you've interviewed some of the most prolific thinkers of our time, and you call yourself a journalist, but yet I'm having trouble because you look like a very powerful man. You have the ZZ Top beard, which, by the way, the Dugan interview that I watched when it first came out, you both had the dueling beards length. I loved it. But you don't look like, how shall I put this? As our friend Bronze Age Pervert would say, you don't look like a hideous cryptoid. You don't look like a Dylan Matthews type. You're not a bug man.
Bug man, exactly. Yeah.
No way, I'm not a bug man. I believe in the sun and the steel. That's why we're here, man. 100%.
Yeah.
And if all those journalists you think of, if the word journalist in your mind doesn't conjure up somebody with big giant balls and fortitude forever, then we've got a serious problem. And that's just a testament to what you see out there right now. And the weakness, like those losers at the Bulwark today, putting out that huge smash piece on Claremont, 12,000 words of telling everybody why Claremont Institute is awesome.
I want to get her on BTR. That would be something, to be able to.
Not Claire Lehman, Claremont Institute.
No. I don't. No, I Claire Lehman separately, but in general, I think it would be interesting. Yes. So, Jack, if you were, and we're kind of skipping ahead, but I am curious, if you were to talk with the people who were responsible for this particular article, well, first of all, would they be interested in talking with you? Do you see that there is a divide right now, or are there some people from that side who would be interested in talking with you? Kind of like
you were talking about the Bulwark?
Yeah, the
Weekly
Bulwark.
Standard losers? No,
yes.
Man, they left me and Spencer Clavin off their hit list, and I think both of us were just a tiny bit miffed. They went all the way down the list: Anton, Beatty, Ryan Williams. Let's see, who else did they go after? Jack Posobiec, Charlie Kirk, who is going to be a Lincoln Fellow with me this year in August at Claremont. They went after everybody. It's basically just, it was 12,000 words explaining why the Weekly Standard is a bunch of losers and why the Claremont folks are not only the present, but the future, because they see what's happening. They're connected to the youth. They host, even if they don't agree with him, and they don't, but they've hosted Bronze Age Pervert. They've given him a platform. We've had dialogues. I've hosted dialogue between Curtis Yarvin and Michael Anton. We're all talking.
That was a great episode, by the way. That was monumental.
Thank you. That was awesome. And you know what? They're still talking. They're still talking, too. They hosted a couple more podcasts after that. I thought that was awesome.
But
and by the way, we also have Daniel Idfresne here. I just want to say real quick, Daniel, thank you so much for coming back in. I really appreciate it. Daniel is a young, rising up-and-comer. The first time I met him, I saw him with a big Thomas Sowell book in his knapsack. So, Daniel, thank you so much for coming in. While Jack is going off somewhere, I just want to say, everybody who is watching who is not subscribed, subscribe right now. This is what we do during all the gaps of time. Subscribe, keep subscribing. Patreon, all that good stuff. You know me, I'm always in salesman mode. Anyway,
you got to do it. Share it, because all this stuff is being suppressed. There's no question about it. And the only way to really get the word out is to give the links to your friends, post it to your other social media, send it out an email, call your friend up and be like, yo, check out this podcast. because that's the only way we're going to beat the algorithm.
Absolutely. In fact, I'm going to post it in the chat right now, the exact link to the Twitter link, so share that. But anyway, Jack, you've also, by the way, you talked with Vox Day, and you were supposed to speak with Richard Spencer before that, but he didn't want to. So, well, the first question that I want to ask you, I know Gio has a question too, but I'm really curious about this. When it comes to the people who are interested, even if they disagree with you, in actually speaking, versus the people that want to create a big distance and just never even bother engaging. I mean, I guess you could say you saw that with Richard Spencer, since he did not want to engage. But do you also see this with, let's say, the people who write hit pieces about you, that they don't want to engage?
Well, I mean, if I believe that if you gave me an hour in the room with anybody, by the end they'd see it my way. That's how much I believe in what I'm saying. That's how real I think and how honest and accurate our interpretation of things are. So that, because of that, I doubt that they'll be too interested in engaging. Engaging with Richard Spencer was one thing. Vox Day was a very good interview and a good discussion. Haven't thought about that in a long time. That was back in 2016, I think. And you know, the guys out there that want to argue and be contrary, they don't want to engage, right? Like Matt Iglesias and I live in the same neighborhood. I've seen him on the street. No. I've introduced myself. I've talked to him in person. And every time I come across something of his where he seems like he's wavering, like he's about ready to take the red pill, I feel it. I can feel it, maybe. So I extend the olive branch and I say, buddy, come lift some weights with me. I'll coach you. I'll train you. I'll buy you a smoothie afterwards. And in between sets, we can talk about how Marxism is infused in CRT from top to bottom. He hasn't responded just yet. So it's interesting to see who says no and who says yes. I'm open and willing to talk to anybody credible. And I enjoy the conversations. And frankly, I love being convinced to see the world a different way, because that means I learned something that day. So I'm always open. I'm always open.
That's very interesting. I remember the magazine that's no longer with us, I used to write for, that had some connection, negative connection to Claremont people. It was called Thermador Magazine, and we had this one article about Matty Iglesias. It was called Matty Iglesias, American Psycho. I think you can still find it in the Wayback Machine. But it really is about how his sort of neoliberal ideology is really for a massification of America through sheer just let's say econometrics, and that is totally antithetical to, I think, the original American spirit. But what I wanted to ask you, well, of course, like your backstory and how you got here, but just really quickly, you're involved with people in the Claremont Institute, and I certainly enjoy a lot of those thinkers. I have a lot of disagreements. I'm much more, I guess, akin to Dugin's argument, right, Lev?
Right, Gio. Right.
But how would you square the circle between the very pro-American, how shall you say, yeoman classical constitutionalist bent of the Claremont people, and with people that are more, let's say, exotic to the American experience? I mean, we mentioned Bronze Age pervert, but you also had an excellent interview recently with, what's his name, Sohrab Ahmari?
Ahmari.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I'm much more favorable to him, especially being, a Catholic myself. But how would you deal with sort of those contradictions of thinkers on the political right, or who have been categorized as on the political right, that are not necessarily of the American maximalist constitutional interpretation, that really see America as the promoter and the inflictor of this all-pervasive, let's call it, global homogenous ideology? So,
well, that's a tremendous question, and it's not one with any real answer. There's no squaring a lot of those circles, but let's take that in pieces. Dialogue with anybody who is authentic and genuine and who wants to have a real conversation, is willing to be challenged and willing to think about things. If you note in my interview with Sohrab Ahmari, there was a number of times where I'm like, I don't necessarily agree with everything that you're saying here, and I deliberately didn't attack, because I wanted him to just keep sharing, right? And he was excellent, and he responded very well to my challenges and to my very authentic line of question. Same with Dugan, you know, he responded in the same way. So did Bronze Age Pervert, so does Curvis Yarvin, so does Michael Anton. Any of these guys that are bringing their just true scholarship to the table to talk about the questions which are truly the most important ones today. First of all, it's like, is the United States today an expression of the founders' ideas? Are we exporting the founders' vision today under the name of universal human rights? I would say no, right? So if we are Claremont, and we're talking about Claremont's perspective, and they're trying to champion the role of the American founding and those values, etc., and are they also saying at the same time, which they are, we need a complete and total regime change? So then when somebody like Alexander Dugin will criticize modern America's exports of culture, political, this idea of universal human rights and whatnot, you know, he's got a point. What are we exporting right now? Then you get into the arguments of, if you're going to be a nationalist, well, then I think that you're actually acknowledging that there's other nationalists as well. And if there are other nationalists as well, then you have to have room in your analysis to respect the existence of other nationalists. Otherwise, you're not really a nationalist. You're an omni person. You're a universalist. One of the things that Dugin really hammers home is his idea of, you know, ethno-pluralism, or just a pluralism in general. And I asked my good friend and amazing scholar, Michael Millerman, about this question, about how do we square these ideas of universal, if you believe in God, then you go through the progression and you do end up with a notion of universal rights through natural law. Now, as I asked Michael about that, how do we square this idea that we have this way of doing things here and the way of doing things elsewhere? And the way Michael described it to me, which was so eloquent, and I'm having him and Spencer Clavin on together next month. I can't wait for that. He said that the light shines equally over uneven terrain. If you think about that, okay, God, natural law, natural rights, it's shining down on all of us, but we're all coming to it from different perspectives, different terrain, different areas. Some people are in the ravine, some people are on the mountaintop. So the light shines a little bit differently depending on where you are. And I think that that is what Dugin would say.
Yeah.
Okay, because Dugin is an Orthodox, right? He's Orthodox. So it means he's Christian. So that means he believes in God. So that means he believes in natural, all those things. But at the same time, he also believes in pluralism. So I've been asking this question on Twitter for a long time. Are there universal rights without God? And the reason why I like to ask this question is because the Democratic left believes that there are universal rights that they're trying to hammer and stuff down the throats of everyone all around the world and in the United States, but at the same time disregarding the existence, denying explicitly the existence of God. Most of the atheists are on the left. Joe Biden's a fake Catholic. We know this. So they are at once trying to use the sunshine of God and universal rights as a way to promote whatever perverted vision that they have. And then when we tie all the way back a little bit more to Sohrab Ahmari, when I asked him the different, what is freedom for? And he says, freedom is not to do license. And I'm not sure I agree with this yet, right? Like this is why I'm a journalist and not an activist per se. He says that freedom is not freedom to run amok, but rather to do what's right. And so these are all the most important questions of our day. And I'm glad you brought them up right away. And there's no good answer.
Well, the left is entirely Gnostic. But before we go, I wanted to ask the panel, and I wanted to get your backstory. But let me just say one thing really quick. I have a great, and hopefully he could come on the show one day. I have such a great love and respect for Michael Millerman. He is someone close to me because I'm also a Canadian, and I was following that story when he was kicked out of the University of Toronto. I actually attended a debate. I'm from Niagara. Thank God I don't live in Toronto. I attended a debate with his first professor, his first supervisor, when he was going through his doctorate. And let me just say, after talking to him, because I knew the prof that organized it. She was my second reader. And I was talking to the guy a little bit after. And let me just say, I can entirely understand why Millerman is incredibly embittered, because the whole time I mentioned like, okay, what about this? What about that? He's like, no, that's all fascism. This is all fascism. Nietzsche, fascist. Heidegger, fat. Well, I mean, Heidegger, but but maybe before we ask the panelist, Lev, like you wanted to ask about his backstory and how he got here, but because you really mentioned some stuff in your book, but also on air, like they got you kicked out of a little league game. You were a coach.
Not just the game, man. They got me banned from coaching little league altogether. I mean, tell me when you're ready to start on the backstory, because I can give it to you. You're gonna take just
go ahead, Randy.
You guys ready?
Yeah,
for that?
I'm ready for the backstory.
Like, how'd you arrive at becoming a journalist and so forth?
Well, funny thing is, the only thing I ever wanted to be when I was a kid was a journalist. I dreamed of going to Northwestern University, going to the Medill School of Journalism. I thought that was the only path for me. I was on the school newspaper. I got fired from my first journalism job for speaking the truth. So that should have actually told me what was coming. Quick little story. I was on the school newspaper. I was an editor. I got hired by one of these local newspapers that has like 20 of them in the area. I got hired to write a weekly update on my high school, right? And it was supposed to just be like, oh, the cheerleaders did this, and the football team did that. And every week I would just fax it in and they would just run it. Well, one day, the principal expelled a kid by setting him up and selling him fake LSD and kicked the kid out of school. And the kid was the A+ student, and he was the leader of the band, drum major. So I didn't like that, man. I didn't like that at all. And so I wrote like 250 words critiquing them. I faxed it in, and I guess no one bothered to read it because they published it. And in this little group of 10 things, all about all these different high schools and how great the cheerleaders are, there was mine right in the middle saying, my school sucks, this is stupid, fascist, probably said something like that. And I got fired, caused an uproar or whatever. So I have I'm not unaccustomed to controversy around the things that I write. But how did I get to be a journalist? Well, I got divorced and I needed to figure out what was going on in the world. And so I just started trying to, like, how do I date? How do I meet girls? This is 2009.
2009, yeah.
Yeah, 2009. And I'm like, how do I figure out how to meet girls? So I start doing that. I get into game, start learning about feminism, start learning about radical feminism. And I just keep pulling on this thread, man. Keep pulling on this thread. And I've literally pulled on the same thread all the way to this very day. I keep asking questions and I get a response. I ask another question, get a response. And now we're all the way down to talking about universal rights and God and natural law and stuff, because you have to go all the way through all these questions to get there. But in terms of like my social media persona and whatnot, and my profile online, in 2015 and 14, my good buddy Mike Cernovich came to Twitter. He and I have been friends since like 2010, I suppose. And long before either one of us were on Twitter or social media. And he came to Twitter and he's like, hey man, Twitter's fun, you should check it out. So I created an account, no followers, no nothing. I'm just following along. I'm tweeting to nobody, doing nobody things, writing blog posts that literally 100 people are reading. I'm writing about sex. I'm writing about feminism. I'm being trolly. I'm responding to Milo and his energy at the time, super hardcore trolly, you know. And eventually I was in a picture with Jack Posobiec, Will Chamberlain, Cassandra Fairbanks, Chelsea Manning, okay? The transgender whistleblower, patriot, however you want to look at it, male, who knows what's going on there. And we were just having fun. We just were socializing. Cassandra knows a bunch of people. She invited Chelsea out. We went and did an escape room. That picture, put that aside in your mind for a second. That picture laying dormant for months. A Night for Freedom in 2018, January, New York City. Chelsea Manning, Mike Cernovich's party. Chelsea Manning shows up and everybody freaks out. There are journalists from all over there. There's Antifa outside getting arrested, assaulting people. There was an assault at that party that were the guys in prison. Yeah, prison. And it was a huge event and there was all kinds of energy there. And Chelsea was there and the left freaked out that Chelsea was seen at a, alt-right, whatever, hardcore right event. So nothing happened. I'm coming home from New York to DC on Sunday. I start getting all these texts. Are you a Nazi? Are you a racist? What's going on? Like, what are you talking about? Well, it turns out that picture got unearthed. It got sent to Can we cuss on this one? Got sent to effing Yasher Ali, who without
Yeah,
any regard,
you can cuss.
without
certain
any
gamer words try to avoid, but yeah, swear words you can do it. Yeah.
Yeah.
without any fucking regard for anybody in the picture, civilians, bystanders, or whatever. He tweets it out to his 500,000 people. This guy who's all against cancel culture and respects all people and elephants and everything. Fuck that guy. He tweets it out to 500,000 people, Huffington Post, and before you know it, everybody in my life knows about it. They think I'm a Nazi and a racist. So that's Sunday night. I'm getting personal calls and texts. Monday, Antifa picks up on it. They saw the picture of me with Chelsea. There was numbers above all the heads of us in this picture, above Jack, above Cassandra, above Will. These are just my friends. I'm not involved. I'm not a public figure or anything at this point. And above my head was a question mark. So Antifa's like cyber shock team went on the prowl. They backtraced it however they did. They figured out who I was, found out where I worked, and on Monday ran a coordinated social media assault on my employer, calling me a Nazi and a racist. I'm an associate. They said I'm associate of Jason Kessler and Richard Spencer, which is all lies, obviously. And then I got suspended, and there was a fake investigation, and I got fired a few months later. By everything, not only did I get fired from my job, then they printed out everything off of my blog, found out where I coached Little League, sent it to the Little League board, and urged the Little League board to fire me. These are just parents. They don't know what's going on. Of course, they're going to ban me. They don't want to deal with all this crap. And that was the end of my Little League coaching, which had been going on for 4 years. And, it was a great time with my son. And that was it. I got fired. I got shamed. I got named. I got shunned. I got exiled. I got banned from coaching Little League. I had no income, no job, no prospects, no nothing. That's me, January to June 2018. It's a dark time, guys. That was a dark time.
But wait, they called you a Nazi, but aren't you you and Lev both share a...
Yes. Well, your father's line is Jewish, your mother's line is Irish, and you even talked about in the book how you would celebrate both like Irish festivals and Jewish holidays. And that's another question I want to get into a little bit later. Like, where do you see culture playing a role in, let's say, a much more multicultural society in certain respects? But before that, I want to get to another firing that occurred even before that with the charter school that you helped form and, guide all these kids and eventually these ladies. I mean, man, I wish Hotep Sophia was here because she was from the DC scene. She knew all these, Game of Thrones tier women who occupy various positions in the DC machine that are all connected, that all help each other, and that they're serious business, these ladies, and they strike at
idiots, is what they are, man. They're our board of this. I was hired to turn around charter school. I was hired to turn around a couple, actually, because I was good at it. I was turning around this charter school. It had been like 3.9 years of a 4-year plan. We were 95 yards down the field, ready to finish off the whole turnaround project. And they were like, oh, this doesn't look so hard. Why don't we do it? We need to have a person of color out front. We need a woman out front. We can't have this white dude out front. The school's 100% black. All the staff and I had a great relationship. I loved the kids. I loved everything about it. But they wanted to have a woman or a black woman. And in fact, they ended up hiring a black lesbian woman to replace me.
Oh, that's 3 points right there.
I know, right? I know, right? And so they concocted a story that I had created a hostile work environment based on race and gender, and that I was being all kinds of exclusive and discriminatory and all that. When ironically, the first day I showed up to work there, I was hired as a CFO. The executive director at the time handed me a pamphlet that said, here's how white people communicate. Here's how black people communicate. You need to learn how to communicate like a black person. That was day one. Okay. So
that's so racist, by the way. The idea that black people have to communicate in a certain.
There's the white voice, Lev. The white voice.
Well, actually, I'm curious. Like, I want to ask.
Violence.
Yes, I want to ask Daniel. Like, what has been your experience? I mean, you're relatively younger than a lot of us. What has been your experience when dealing with similar things that Jack is talking about? Like, would certain people assume that there has to be like a black voice versus a white voice, and there has to be some kind of a differentiation in terms of like how black people are supposed to act or talk, and like what has been your experience when it comes to any of that stuff?
Very interesting question. And in my personal experience, I've gone to school in two completely different neighborhoods. I went to a charter school myself for elementary and middle school. I go to I went to Uncommon schools in Brownsville, one of the most dangerous neighborhoods in Brooklyn. And now I go to Brooklyn Technical High School, one of the 9 specialized high schools in New York City in Fort Greene. And so I've experienced, I guess, all of Brooklyn, the wealthy and the poor. And I would say that the students in the charter schools is pretty much 100% Black, a few Hispanics here and there. It was so Black that the only Hispanic in the class was regarded as white. I'll keep it there, right? And yeah, it is a problem. I would say it is a problem. Black students erroneously assume that if you speak proper English, that you're speaking the white way, and that harms Black students who are meticulous in their studies. And the fact that it happens in charter schools as well goes to show how deep this problem is. Because if this is happening in a charter school where the students are more meticulous, they're more meticulous with their work, they're studious, right? Charter schools, they don't choose anybody to be a student, right? There's a wait list for a reason, and they choose very hardworking students. If the hardworking students think speaking properly is speaking white English, then the Black community has a serious problem. Being able to speak the white way or to speak proper English is really actually being able to articulate the ideas that you want in the manner that you want it to be articulated in. Like when you articulate properly, the English language isn't something that has been prescribed from above per se, right? It's been developed over thousands, way more than thousands, but over many years, many centuries, in order for you to postulate whatever idea that you want without being hampered or without being, and I'm experiencing this right now, right? I'm trying to articulate an idea is in my mind, but I'm unable to get it out. But the English language has been developed over a long period of time for you to be able to turn those thoughts into words. And if the Black community rejects that, then they've essentially forfeited their ability, example, to wield their own political capital, which in the other live stream last week, I talked about how political capital has ruined the Black community. And part of the reason why it has ruined part of the reason why the Black community itself has not been able to wield their own political capital, all right, the reason why they aren't able to is because they can't articulate what they want, but the Blacks who can articulate, the intellectuals, the Black anointed, your Al Sharptons can, and they assume the role of representative.
Can we back up for a minute? Just really quickly, for people who aren't in America, what is the charter school system? Like, how does it operate, and how is it different from is it a private school system that you have to pay than the public?
Well, a charter school system, they operate with charters. All right, so it's a public school, so it's free, but they prescribe their own rules. For example, in New York City, I don't know if it's different in other places in the country. In New York City, you, for example, have 40-minute blocks for each subject. But when I went to school, we had 2 hours for reading, 1 hour and 30 minutes for math. And that's just one charter that was different from normal public schools. There was many others, like you have to, wear a uniform and do other things. But the main difference between charter schools is essentially a free school that does things differently.
Do you mind if I step in here for a second?
Yeah.
A charter school is a publicly funded, privately operated school that is open to anybody within the district. And they have there's a system established that grants them additional autonomy in exchange for additional accountability. So charter schools have freedom within bounds to decide the curriculum, the class structure, their school calendar, disciplinary rules, et cetera, but in exchange they're supposed to have greater levels of accountability, meaning if the school's trash, they get shut down. Right. So in Washington, D.C., for example, they're closing schools every year because every year their schools, well, at the bottom of the list. And they're continuously trying to upgrade the quality of the school by closing bad ones and granting charters to new ones. And if this feels like a free market solution to education problem, it is, which is ironic to me because it's an extreme right-wing public policy approach to solving the issue that used to be a public good. And then in DC, it's become a civil rights matter because the schools in DC for African Americans were so poor and still are so poor. And this is the argument. So charter schools are meant to free up the kids from their crappy neighborhood school, give them the choice to get into a school that's going to operate in a way that serves them.
It's results based, in other words.
It's supposed to be. But, they start skewing the results in order to save schools and hide the achievement gap and all of these things. And we can get into the nitty gritty on that if you want later. But the general idea is autonomy for accountability. And in the district, it's completely staffed with social justice warriors, CRT freaks. Like, when Trump won, they closed the building, the central office that regulates the schools. They shut that down. They brought in, therapists and crisis counselors and all this just because Trump was elected. So there they are, this crazy left-wing SJWs operating in a system designed to be extreme right-wing market-based solution to a public issue, a public good. And we're seeing today this pushback against school choice from all over the board, saying it's now a right-wing issue because they're trying to, inject their white nationalism or their white Christian nationalism, and they're trying to segregate and whatever. When the fact of the matter is that this stuff was started. This stuff was started as a way to free poor urban students from their terrible urban schools and give them a chance to succeed. And now it's being pilloried as a white nationalist, whatever, Nazi approach. But we all know that that's all bullshit. All that is the teacher unions, Randy Weingarten and the rest, trying to preserve their power hold on our students and the money that is education, my bros, is a massive industry. Industry.
Here in Ontario, we have the most powerful teachers union in North America that you literally can't challenge politically in it by any means. But are charter schools still subject to Common Core, or is that like just a given?
Well, they have to test on the standardized test. So whatever the state is elected to be their standardized test, then they have to perform on that test. They can provide whatever kind of curriculum they want, but if they don't perform on that test, the school they're not going to stay open.
Yeah. I took the state test, but we had an uncommon curriculum for uncommon schools.
Yeah. But Daniel, I wanted to get to Tom, but Daniel, just to finish up your point, but also, I guess, nature of the show and journalism, blah, blah, blah. Wouldn't you say that a counterpoint to play devil's advocate would be that these Afro-American students, that they are expressing their unique culture, and isn't it wrong of us to inflict our largely white, anthropocentric, male-centric standards upon African-American and indigenous populations? Like, for example, in my country, the whole issue of the residential schools brings up cultural genocide and so forth. Do you think that black African-Americans conforming to those standards is in some ways a form of cultural erasure? Or do you think that's, as an African-American person yourself,
Well, I would say that the contention that forcing, or not even forcing, but teaching Black kids how to speak proper English, or telling them to pull their pants up and not listen to certain music, or even ascribing certain music and certain behaviors by Black people as their culture is insulting, right? It is not Black culture to gangbang. It is not Black culture to not be held accountable. It's not Black culture to not study and do your work and be a good citizen, right? These are pathologies that transcend the Black community. These are pathologies that plague poor communities. And the fact of the matter is, the Black community is a community that is not financially as competitive as other groups like Asian Americans. The idea that Blacks are unable to adopt or are unable to adopt or to express Western beliefs is a lie. And honestly, the anointed, the elites, use this idea that Blacks are inherently unable to be Western in their thought, unable to be individualistic, unable to adopt the cultural mechanisms of our society, the cultural mechanisms that allow our society to be great, is an insult as well. And we know is not true. We know that Blacks can adopt good habits and can adopt the proper cultural norms that will allow them to succeed. For example, Blacks from the West Indies, Blacks from the Caribbean, Blacks who immigrated from Africa make way more money than Black Americans. There's a reason for that, right? And my parents are Haitian. They're from the Caribbean themselves. And the culture that my parents brought, the culture that they gave me, is entirely different from. The culture that they gave me resembles Asian culture, resembles the culture that we should be telling the habits that we should be telling our children to adopt. Their culture resembles that more than Black culture, right? For example, my parents are devout Christians, very devout Christians, right? I had two parents in the household, a mom and a dad, right? My parents told me, you have to study. You have to do well. You have to study for this test that will get you into one of the specialized high schools in New York City, right?
Well, they'd probably say that that's all white. They probably say that, right?
Yeah, like those Chris Rufo, those manuals he gets his hands on that say things like, what was it? Being on time is white supremacy.
Well, make no mistake. Yeah. Ascribing Western culture, Western ideals to whiteness is a way for them to dismiss the entire Western canon as racist. Let's call it what it is, right? And you don't even need to ask Caribbean Blacks or African Blacks whether they think being on time is a good thing to do. Normal Blacks, like Black Americans whose ancestors were slaves, will tell you the same thing. Black Americans will tell you, we shouldn't really be shooting each other in the streets, right? But again, political capital is not being used by the actual Black community. If it was, then we wouldn't be defunding the police in 2020, right? Because all four boroughs, except for Manhattan and the wealthy parts of Brooklyn, your Park Slopes, your Brooklyn Heights, all those wealthy areas in Brooklyn and all of Manhattan, while they voted for the defund police candidates, guess who voted for the pro-cop candidate? South Bronx, all of Bronx, really, right? Queens, Brooklyn, all the other four boroughs voted for a pro-cop candidate. There's a reason for that. But Blacks are not using their political capital, and it was frankly a mistake to pursue political capital rather than economic capital, as I said last week.
So what I want to get to right now is, speaking of culture, when I was mentioning the Jewish-Irish connection, and I always talk to Gio about the Jewish-Italian connection. So many Jewish people and Italian people marry each other, and I think that's a wonderful thing, because they do have a lot in common. But you were describing all these various festivals that you celebrated. Today, I'm not sure how many people are even celebrating festivals in general. And as far as what exactly people are spending most of their time doing, my concern is that people becoming so derooted from anything that's more than just some petty self-satisfaction that they would experience, on the internet, that being the future for a lot of people, the bug man as we were referring to before. How exactly would we be able to have a good balance between setting an example for people to follow, where sometimes they'd have to be nudged to following that, to, becoming part of something bigger than themselves, but not succumbing to a kind of totalitarian dictatorship in the attempt to bring that about? Because if you're going to say that, well, the only way to get people to do so and so is to force them, I'm sure there's going to be a lot of people coming out of the woodwork who are going to be saying exactly that in the future. And I'm not sure if their actual, how that's going to be implemented is going to be what the people think it's going to be like. But I'm curious, Jack, where do you see the balance between getting people to look at something bigger than themselves while not enforcing it from a top-down totalitarian stance?
Well, again, you've asked the question of the day, my friend. In a society that's designed to be free, John Adams very clearly said that a free society like ours requires religious and moral people. Take away the religiosity and the morality, and what do you have? You've got what? Just a den of iniquity, as it were. And that's where we're headed. And with all the guardrails removed, and even, I remember when Jordan Peterson brought up the notion of culturally enforced monogamy, and everyone freaked the fuck out. Enforced monogamy.
It was a solid month. Yeah, it was.
Right. Oh, enforced monogamy. Culturally, what does that mean? Fascism. No, actually, it's your mom and dad being like, yo, we didn't get divorced. You should get married and have kids. When are we getting grandkids? When are you getting married? That's culturally enforced monogamy. Jiminy Crickets, people. And then also you've got the church and you've got other places. I've started changing my JCs around, by the way. It's been a thing. I noticed how much I say it, and now I'm like, I don't say it anymore. So Jiminy Crickets on that.
Yes, but how do you enforce the cultural enforcement though? That's the big question.
America is a unique country in the sense that there's two layers to the American experience. There's the relativistic layer and the absolutist layer. And the fact of the matter is, in America, the absolutist layer does not overtake the relativistic layer. Now, how does this play out? Well, in the relativistic layer, you have your different foods. Like, for example, in New York City, you can go get Thai food, and you can go get halal food and whatever, and you can go get this and that. But under that, there's an absolutist layer of liberty, of classical liberalism, of Judeo-Christian values. And you see this, when immigrants come over here, they subscribe to classical liberalism and Judeo-Christian values while maintaining the more relativistic parts, while maintaining, the foods that they eat, for example. And that would manifest itself as a more relativistic layer. And so what we see today is a left that is attempting to absolutely remove the absolutist layer that keeps us together. The absolutist layer functions as glue, right? All right, we're able to eat so many different foods. We're able to listen to different musics, all these different things, experience different cultures. But what keeps us together is the idea of natural rights, the idea that truth trumps all, a very important Western motif that has been subverted by postmodern philosophies like critical race theory, for example. Mm-hmm. Right? The left right now is attempting to essentially destroy that glue. And once you destroy that absolutist glue of classical liberalism, truth as first priority, Judeo-Christian values, you're left with different cultures floating around. And the natural result of that is conflict. And so what we're going to see in the next few years is an attempt by Americans to re-strengthen that glue. And it's going to get bad. We're talking about more authoritarian measures to make sure we keep that glue. And this is seen, for example, with Ron DeSantis when he signed a new riot bill. I mean, there was already a bill that, stopped people from rioting, but he increased the punishments. He enforced it. He increased the punishments. Why?
Well, that's still one guy though. Like, I don't know. Like, Jack, do you think that we're going to be seeing more Ron DeSantis coming up, or is this
also,
just like
Tom
a blip?
Has been quite a patient.
Yes. So
I'm just happy to be, guys. I'm just happy to be here. So right now, one thing that you said though is like how it's going to get worse. It's going to get so much worse. Like, maybe I'm just a little too white-pilled on. Maybe I listen to too much Malice. But I think what a lot of it comes down to is, I think in the end, I think we're going to be all right, because there are an awful lot of people out there that are kind of quietly, and also, and Jack, I think you made a really good point, how, hey, these kinds of conversations, they need to be spread, get them out there, because Jimmy Kimmel isn't talking about him, right? Like that's at all, right? And so I think that I am pretty optimistic because I think there's enough folks out there that are just like, okay, this is a bunch of garbage. Yeah, and especially when it comes to like, me being a military guy, most of my adult life, what the stuff that they're teaching now, whether it's, during military training and the academies and all that other stuff, they're kind of saying, but everyone's just kind of paying lip service to it. Not unlike a lot of like corporate HR, everyone's got to get the mandatory HR training and everyone sits there and nods. Okay.
Well, in order for
and you don't get that many people to like speak up, but I think that's coming eventually. People are just like, I'm just not paying attention to this anymore.
Yeah, and that's gonna manifest as they're not gonna say, well, I disagree with you. They're gonna say, shut up. They're gonna tell the left, shut up, right? And that's how we're gonna become more authoritarian in that sense.
Okay.
There's gonna be, and I do believe it will get better, right? But right now the United States is almost going through a cold. When you get a virus or whatever, when you're sick, you get a fever, right? You start coughing, sneezing. What is that? That's not the virus. That's your body reacting to the virus, right?
Sure.
And just like how you get a fever and the temperature turns up in your body, the temperature is going to turn up in America because America is going to start trying to swat off the virus that leftism is, that the left is right now, right? It's going to try to swap it off, get off me.
But then
right?
if you have
turn up the temperature.
But then if you have certain, let's say, bleach salesmen who come along and say, you know what, well, I'm not going to say it on YouTube because they might think that I'm actually encouraging it. But the idea being is that sometimes the cure may be worse than the illness. When it comes to, for example, I want to go back to Dugan for 1 second. When it comes to the kind of people who Dugan has been associated with, like, Jack, you may not know this, but my family, they have a long history, like, within the Russian, like, post-USSR establishment. Like, they knew all the rising players from around that area. And for all the people who are used to me blabbing about sorry, but I'm going to say it anyway, that it was shown that Putin was, from very early on, a parasite within the Russian government. It was because the KGB was not defeated. The Communist Party they were taken out of commission by Gorbachev, but Gorbachev let the KGB remain, so people like Putin ended up being propped up by people like Yeltsin, because Yeltsin did a lot of dirty things in Russia, and so did Putin during that time, and then Yeltsin wanted to make sure that he had immunity from all the robberies that he was doing to the Russian people, which is why he put Putin in charge. But suffice to say, then you have somebody like Dugan coming in there and, advocating for Russia going in other territories, and I'm not sure, like, for all the people who look at, let's say, the Bronze Age mindset kind of ideal of land expansion, more territory, I think that they're looking, with very rose-colored glasses at the other side because they haven't experienced actually living in a place like Russia, the kind of environment that is. They see a lot of bad things in the United States, which we try to fix, but that's what I want to get back to as far as how do we get the balance to make sure that people aren't going to sell us bleach, because I see that kind of top-down authoritarian dictatorship that I think so many young people online are just, they're just thinking about how amazing it would be if we get a Caesar, if we get somebody to come in, clean everything up, and have order. And that's
We're
very
not going to
disturbing.
spin up the helicopters? We're not spinning up the helicopters?
See,
no?
That's interesting, though, because when it came to that guy, I'd still say that he ended up stepping down eventually. So at least I'd say that with Pinochet, even Pinochet stepped down. But here you have somebody who has no intention of stepping down, nor can he, in terms of the situation that he's in. So, Jack,
should he?
Oh, come on, Gio. So anyway, Jack, how would you, and welcome Verse and welcome Andrew Meyer, how would you balance things to make sure that we don't get into that kind of a Putin-esque dictatorship?
What's funny, I've traveled extensively in Chile, and people in Chile, they have mixed feelings about Pinochet. They call him Pinochet, though, because in Spanish, that's how you say it. And he did a lot of good down there. There's a reason why their economy is doing so strongly still to this day. It's an interesting story. Lots of pros and cons, obviously, we're not going to get into. Where is the solution? The solution comes from the father, however you want to interpret that. And if you don't have the big F father, well, then the little F father's got to figure out how to guide the family to the big F father, I think. I think that's it. So the little F father is the guy right now on the spot. Dads of America, you're on the spot. How are you going to get you and your family and your people committed to something bigger than yourself? How are you going to figure out a way to use your freedom to do something that you should do instead of something that you want to do? How are you going to spread that notion amongst you, your family, and your community members? Well, through leadership, through personal leadership. I don't have the big F father yet. I'm trying, I'm looking, I'm reading, I'm open, my heart is open.
That's God, right? The big F father, just
the
so
big
we're
F
clear.
father, yeah.
That's
And I'm open. I can't say it. Like, I just can't say it because I'm not there yet, but I'm trying. I'm reading my Bible. Started
Wait,
from page one.
meaning you're agnostic, or how would you describe your belief system?
Currently, my relationship status is Bible curious.
I like that. I like that tweet. And the thing is, it's funny is and also, Jack, just this past weekend, I was with a bunch of our mutual friends, and actually we were talking about you. Maybe your ears are burning. And it came up. I said,
I was getting the text.
Yeah, I know you were. And so I said to Posobiec, I think Murphy's coming around. I think he's on his way. And Posobiec just says, matter of time. It's all coming. They all come around. It's all a matter of time. And one of the things I got to say about this, which is so interesting, is so much of this, whether they call it the red pill or, what was once called the alt-right and then got subverted by a bunch of crazies, right? Red pilling and all that.
Well, it was Moldbug first. Moldbug was the guy who came up with it.
It was Yarvin, Moldbug, right. And so the thing is, though, is it's like it all eventually finds its way to God, religion, and I think specifically Christianity, specifically Catholicism and or Orthodox. So that's just kind of my take. I think that's it. I always look, for me at least, I got to say that for me, like, it actually started, I stumbled upon, I got to say it, Return of Kings, like 7-8 years ago. And it was like some of the stuff on there was ridiculous. Some of it was fucking hilarious. Some of it was, ooh, that cuts, but that's true. That's pretty true. I don't want to admit it, but that cuts, it's true. And then from there, read a couple other things, some more things, started sharing some things. Then next thing I know, I'm watching Joe Rogan. And the next thing happens, Joe Rogan's on with Jordan Peterson the fall of 2016, and I watched that podcast like 3-4 hours, shared it with all my friends. People calling me like I listened to that, I watched that, and like I was brought to tears. And they're like, that was like your gateway drug. I always look like, and Jack
radicalization
told me that.
pipeline.
It is, and I look at, like, for example, for me at least, I look at Peterson as like the gateway drug, and then from there it kind of expands, and I mean eventually that's where you arrive, I think. And I think
I want
varying
to
degrees.
I want to expand on the father figure thing real quick, because that's interesting. And I was talking to Lev about this last week with Brent, actually. And I said there's a reason why we believe that George Washington and Abraham Lincoln are the best presidents in the United States, in the history of the United States. And Jack, you almost, I guess, made the whole thing like even more clear for me. Those figures, they're almost like the big F, but for America, right? Because during times of distress, during times when the temperature has been turned up, and they could have became the dictator in the house, they didn't, right? Instead, they gave us the chance to start anew. For example, George Washington, every single time when a new nation is founded, the first leader has to set a great precedent. George Washington was just able to step down. He could have kept the power. He could have done something to increase the power he had, but he stepped down. Abraham Lincoln, he suspended habeas corpus, right? Shut down freedom of speech, the press. Yet, at the end of the Civil War, we are now a better nation, right? And we kind of need that, right? We need that.
But that's a very tricky situation. The people who would, let's say, disagree with you, who would also be, not the biggest fans of Trump, they would say that what Trump did, which is absolutely inexcusable, is that he stepped through, kind of like a Julius Caesar, he stepped through, over the elite, and he went right to the people, and they would say that that is a very dangerous thing in and of itself, because we have the system of checks and balances, and once you introduce this, once you throw a monkey wrench into that, that system is eventually going to become undone. And the question that I have concerns the actual health of the system. keeping in mind, again, other countries around the world, like how awful is the system versus in other places. But also, Jack, a question to you. When it comes to, giving the devil his due, when it comes to being devil's advocate, how much would you say there may be people within the system, within the swamp, who knowingly pander to the far left, know that, yes, there's going to be many instances where the far left are going to get away with certain things that people on the right cannot, but at the same time use that as a way of just, shaking the baby rattle at them, so to speak. So they make their little temper tantrum, they calm down, and then it's business as usual. So how many people do that versus are like true believer, crypto communists or globalists that want to enslave, the entire United States? That's what I'm curious from your experience.
Everybody on all sides pander to the money, dude. There's no left and right issues on money. It's one big giant corporate unisex party. One giant corporate uniparty. They're all the same. They're all neocons. They're all neoliberals. They all believe in free markets over everything. They're all willing to trade American jobs for profits for corporations. They're all willing to trade environmental standards for corporate profits and then complain that we're not doing it here at home. The export race to the bottom was a real thing. People complained about it in the 90s. It turned out to be real. It really did happen. Wages went down, environmental standards went down, and we have gutted ourselves by Democrats, by Republicans. One of the few people on the left, an avowed Democrat who I know is an authentic, genuine, interested person who wants to solve these problems, is Matt Stoller. He's one of the few people on the left who's a Democrat who's come out and critiqued all of this, been totally honest about it, and he's taken a lot of shit. If you're on the Democrat side and you don't have arrows in your back, you're a poser. If you're on the Republican side and you don't have arrows in your back, you're a poser. That's it. All these people are pandering. They're all pandering to the money and to the corporate interest. Now, long term, in an infinite cycle, people that have our similar belief system are going to win. Why? Because it is the right and natural way of things. People on the left who have their belief system in a long enough, it's not going to work out. The fundamental first principles first are antagonistic, and one of them generates life, the other one kills it. So on a long enough time scale, they're going to peter out and we're going to live. Problem is, we don't all have infinity time.
Yeah.
And things can be very, very dark for a very, very long time.
Yeah.
It could. It has taken so long. It's taken them 5 decades to take over all of our institutions, to start with just some radical crazies and get all the way to Joe Biden at the joint session of Congress saying that white nationalist terrorism is the most important and dangerous threat that we face in America.
Antifa's just an idea.
Yeah, Antifa's just an idea, even though, they actually hurt my children, right? Antifa with a banner flag, right? They don't exist, but they sure came after my kids. Ask my kids if Antifa. Yeah, ask if my kids if Antifa exist. But the long-term battle, unfortunately, we have to accelerate it. They've marched through the institutions. Now we have to use technology. We have to use emergent networks. We have to use social media. We have to use new ways of coming together to form networks that can rival the institutions. And until that we can achieve some level of sovereignty away for either fix the regime, seems difficult right now, or we provide alternative systems and support structures through networks that rival the institutions. All the institutions that used to give us meaning and support and sustenance, they're all corrupted, they're all captured. Not only are they corrupted and captured, but they're captured, corrupted, and led by a bunch of fucking teenagers. Have you seen ACLU's Twitter account? Jeez Louise.
Terrible.
It is trash, okay?
Well,
facial recognition software is racist. What? Black people don't have faces, I guess.
There was this Democrat official Twitter account, I forget for which district, that got ratioed saying that people say that they want to go back to one income supporting the home. What that actually means is that you hate women having independence financially and being in the workforce. So that's capital. That's the voice of capital, woke capital. But
yeah,
and
super iron graduates from college and like interns from high school, and then that becomes like the the narrative that they start using, and it kind of just gets incorporated Right.
But how many of them are true believers, though, when it comes to that narrative? It seems like Jack was saying a lot of them are phoning it in, a lot of them are doing it for the money. And in a way, for me, that's not the worst thing in the world. Like, let's say if we're looking at imperialist Russia before the communist revolution. In that scenario, I'm sure that there were a lot of people who were saying the exact same things we were saying, only they were doing it in the coffee parlors or whatever, wherever the intelligentsia was back then. And they would have a lot of good, valid points to talk about, the problems within the Russian Empire. But the issue is not that. The issue is how they handled going against it resulted in what we know to be the USSR. So my question...
Can I just finish?
Sure.
I'll follow up one last point.
Sure.
I'll give it right back to you guys. It's not just money. It's power. It's prestige. It's fame. It's social status. It's friends. It's just walking down the street with your head held high. Those are all the things that they're pandering to. Right? It's not just money. There's plenty of broke ass jokers working in DC for no money, pushing all this. Okay, I've seen it, and that was one reason why I knew Trump wasn't ever going to really win, because when Obama came to town, dude, I'm from DC. That changed the entire city. Thousands and thousands of people descended upon the town to work for him. That did not happen with Trump by any. Didn't even notice that there was a new administration. But anyway, my point is that these people are doing it for social status, social pressure. Also, it's truly a mimetic mind virus that has captured their brains, and they just don't know. They are ignorant foot soldiers. They're dissociated from the actual truth. They're living in a purposefully inserted alternate consciousness where they're worried about race, they're worried about this, they're worried about that, they're worried about Nazis and fascists and all these things, when all that's really going on is they're distracted. They're meant to be distracted so that you can be pawns, tools, foot soldiers, good little consumers, and to prop up the uniparty that's meant to extract maximum resources from all of us.
And it's a moralism as well that's detached. Oh, go ahead,
You also have to consider that even if the higher ups aren't true believers, and like I know that you made the point about like the parlors, right? And people were able to make zines and like do like different magazines or whatever and create kind of like social movements. But now like that 20-year-old can accidentally create a like via technology can legit make a like massive change in policy and whatever just from like a TikTok or from a tweet thread, right? So like,
and who knows if there's algorithms behind it that
exactly, and there's like Google can suppress speech and they can make real societal change just from them just trying to virtue signal because of the way technology works. So they don't have to even be true believers. It still changes the landscape.
Well, I guess the question there was a quote somebody wrote favorably towards a point that I was making earlier. It went something like, before you tear down the fence, think about the reason why that fence was put up in the first place. And in this case, the fence would be this idea of there being this group of elites, however you want to call them, who set a certain tone for the country. And while being able to criticize all the bad and horrible aspects that we're seeing in them today, my question again goes back to, if we're not just talking about creating an alternative elite that would function in a better way, if we are talking about, let's say, something more drastic like a revolution that occurred in 1917 in Russia, my concern is that people may be very giddy at jumping the gun at supporting that just because they're so bored and sick of whatever the system is today. So I want to make sure that doesn't happen either. So I'm curious, Jack, what your thoughts are when it comes to that.
The system has to fail them first. The system hasn't failed these people yet. You know who's going to be on the forefront of this are going to be teenage girls looking up at 38-year-old single women bitching about there's no good men left. That's where real change
millennial
is
women in a few years. There you go.
The system is failing women by pointing them in the wrong direction, removing the guardrails, saying go do all these things, go act like a man, go fuck like a dog, do all this shit. And now they're going to suffer the consequences of it very visibly, okay? And that's when the younger generation will be able to look up at a signal that's not words, that's not writing, that's not social media, it's just like, fuck, dude, Aunt Margaret, her life sucks. I don't want that.
Sometimes
what did she do?
With dogs.
She did that. She did that. Fuck that. I'm not doing that. Right? Exactly. And so it's going to take a signal like that for people to change. So when you get a someone that graduated from a top school, interns on the Hill, goes work for some shit ass, you know, blog factory or whatever, and just spits it all out. The system hasn't failed them yet. They're starting to feel it. The dissonance is there. Why do I have $300,000 in debt and only make $40,000 a year? I don't know. Rage bait, rage bait, rage bait. But eventually, when it comes home, these kind of things, these ego attachments to a worldview, they're very difficult to dislodge. And generally speaking, and in my personal experience, with me personally, it took personal crisis, actual crisis, where not only was I desperate enough to think about a new option, was I humble enough to accept a new option, but then courageous enough to take steps down that new road. All those things have to line up before somebody's going to just expel this ego invested mind frame that they have. They invested their education, they invested their time. Consistency is one of the most persuasive things in human behavior. People like to do the same thing over and over again. It's one of the fundamental elements of sales. That's why if you get somebody buying a $1 product, you can sell them a $10 product, you sell them a $1,000 product. Very easy, because they like to continue doing what they're doing. Justifies their past behavior. Breaking that cycle is no easy task. And I think it's going to take something like looking up at the generation in front of you and be like, I don't want that for my life. And subconsciously absorb those signals and then decide to make change.
I think as bad as that might be, and I agree with you and everything, like when you see especially young women like looking ahead and seeing like, well, I don't want to be like Aunt Margaret, like what you just said. But, you know, I don't know, I was a history major. One of like the big overarching themes is that what brings about revolution, wars, all this crazy stuff, and you see the history. And I think it still could be on the horizon as well. It's economic instability, right? So when people are living in an economically stable environment, they're far less likely to start breaking shit or going to war. And I think like right now, and like what you exactly said, Jack, is like, the system hasn't failed him yet, right? Oh, I'm only make $40K a year, but I'm $300,000 in debt. But hey, they're still paying the rent, right? Like they still have their iPhone, they still go shop at the Whole Foods, right? Like things are okay right now, even though I can't afford, you know, I might not be able to afford a house yet, I shouldn't get married yet, but like I think if we do see a massive economic collapse or really serious downturn, and like what are other really bad regimes that occurred during, you know, really bad economic times. That was 1930s in Germany, you know, 20s and 30s in Germany. And also you look at almost every communist revolution, right? We have this massive economic disparity. I think that's where it's really going to come about.
It does, but you know what? You can keep poor people down for a long time without them doing anything. True. It's intra-elite competition.
Okay.
Yes.
That's where the revolution comes from.
Margaret's
there are other
cool
people of power. Well, they will make personal decisions, right? The younger generation will make personal decisions that make change, but like a regime level change, that's from intra-elite competition, other elites fighting with other elites. And in our case, it won't be the top 1%. It's like the battle between the like top 2% and the top 4%. It's those people.
Well, Jack, you definitely have
Revolution. Wasn't that what the American Revolution really was? I mean, most of the people that fought and were leading it were all the elites in the colonies.
Yeah, they studied Latin. They knew their stuff.
They were wine snobs.
Wealthy guys. What are you saying, Jack? What do you got? No,
that's not necessarily true. I mean, I have read whole collections of sermons from rural preachers in the mid 18th century who believed that they were here to create a new Zion. The wilderness of America represented the same wilderness in the Bible, and that this was a very religious project. And the American Revolution was an emergent phenomenon in this regard that people don't usually give it credit for, which is it was an alliance between our cosmopolitan elites that you're just describing and rural religious folks that believed that they were on a mission from God to create a new nation in the wilderness of North America. So it is what you said on one hand, but they couldn't have done it without those people at the
But
same
but then
time.
also
This is
how
why
much
Mormonism is the state religion of America, in
Yeah.
my opinion.
But then also I wonder how much people like, and I still got to read up on the guy, but somebody who's always fascinated me was John Dee, who was in the court of the first Queen Elizabeth, where how much was the American project as well as even the British Empire, which I believe he coined, this guy responsible for. You know, somebody who saw, you know, a claim to have seen all these angels and things like that. And if we take a look through history, we have Nikola Tesla, we have Isaac Newton, we have all these people that history likes to portray as being these squeaky clean Neil deGrasse Tyson tier scientists, while in actuality, these people were looking at things that, you know, would have you laughed at and called a tinfoil hatter in today's society. So I always wonder, like, how much that side of it also plays into this whole thing. And Jack, I don't know if that's something you were ever interested in looking into, but let me know.
Yeah, send it on over, man. I'm always open.
Excellent. And also, I just want to say we got Andrew Meyer here. For those who don't know about Andrew, he was tasered in that "Don't Tase Me, Bro" video back in the day. So, Andrew, thank you so much for coming.
Recognized your face. Okay.
Yes.
Hey, Birds, what's up?
Absolutely
Hey,
classic.
Lev, what's up, guys? Hey, Jack. I thought Jack was crushing it when he's talking about the sexual dynamics in America. People don't really realize how much that stuff is an impact. Especially, you know, all the liberal women these days, they're going to universities and they're able to hook up with tens, alpha men, and they think that this is what their life is going to be like. They think they're getting rewards for this system that's being set up. They don't understand that they're going to be left at the game of musical chairs without a chair at the end of it. And that's when they become bitter, and that's when they become terrible. The what is it? Awfuls, awful. It's some acronym for white liberal women.
Awful.
But all of that is really in our hands. It's not up.
Affluent
It's
white
not
female
about the
liberal.
women. It's not about the destructive men, the beta men. It's about alphas. If alphas choose, okay, like when I was in college and I was 21, I was with an amazing woman. I looked down the road and I said, okay, I can try and find another woman. I could be with all the women, but that would really be degrading women for all the other men. And at the end of it, I wouldn't be happy. I'd just be older and it wouldn't work out so good. I mean, God, you know, thank God that I found someone at such a young age, but men aren't really thinking that way. And if men have that mindset, it's going to work out better for all of society, the men at the top. And then when you're talking about spirit, especially Jack was talking about the way America was founded in the spirit of America. America, absolutely. The reason it's so blessed is it had this spirit where people were connecting to God. And that's what, you know, Jack saying that he's reading the Bible more. That's great. The people connecting to the Bible, connecting to Jesus, connecting to God, that's exactly what America needs. And I thought it was funny when Tom said that, you know, eventually it all comes around. It all comes around to the Bible. It all comes around to the Catholic Church. If you dig into the Catholic Church, look in the Catholic Encyclopedia for what the Holy Grail is. And if you dig a couple steps deeper, like what it says the Holy Grail is, you'll find a book called the Zohar. That's what Isaac Newton was studying. That's where he got ideas for his experiments. And the more that people don't just, you know, do Jordan Peterson where they allude to God, but they really they search deep and they try and grab for God. They try and grab light. You know, they dig into what's really going on in the religions. For example, in Catholicism, you dig deep and then you find the Zohar. That's when you get the truest connection to God. So I know Jack was reading the Bible with his group. I totally recommend for you the Kabbalistic Bible. The sages of the Bible say that it's better a man not be born than just study the surface level stories and such, which is the clothing of the Bible. You got to get to the soul of the Bible. And that's when we had the Enlightenment, was when Christians and Jews were studying the Zohar. So I'm happy to be here today and talk to y'all and be able to tell y'all that.
I mean, all I could say regarding the Zohar, which I still have to look at a lot more.
Well, that's
but,
kind
but
of
the,
a stretch, though.
Yeah,
when
yeah.
it comes to,
But I just want to say that the pattern itself seems to be that we have a lot of different religions that disagree on a lot of things, yet within those religions we have other groups of people, mystery schools, whatever you want to call it, who all seem to more or less agree on a certain kind of framework. As far as how that framework, you know, ends up developing over time, whether people use that framework for good or for ill, that's a whole other question. But I wanted to get back to Jack Jack, regarding this question of the elites, where you're right. Like we had Lenin, we had before him Karl Marx, who was a British gentleman. We had these people who were in high positions of society. As far as what you see today, Jack, who the new intellectual elites are, who are, let's say, at the same level, because the one thing that, let's say, people find distasteful about somebody like Trump, regardless of any good things people may find in the guy, one of the things that keeps being brought up is how very tasteless the entire image is. Just this guy with this, stupid gold elevator and the room and all that stuff. And they look at people, back then, like Aristotle, like Plato, all the great thinkers. You don't even have to look that far, like Wittgenstein, just like people who you would look at back then as being like the paragons of intelligence. And when they're looking today, it's like, who do we have? Like, who are the paragons of intelligence who aren't just, because there's a lot of people who are great salesmen. There's a lot of people who would take certain ideas that were developed back then and kind of repackage them in an easily digestible way. But that's not the same thing. I don't think those would be the same people who would be able to lead us towards something greater. So I'm curious what you think.
Anybody whose name we know right now probably isn't the guy. I think that we're still some time away from finding the guy. And I don't mean like the return of the guy. I just mean like an effective leader within the United States. Donald Trump's ascendancy can guarantee one thing. People are desperate. Okay. We are desperate for someone to behave even in a shadow of the way that Trump behaved. And by that I just mean
of a true leader.
Yeah. Even just by just being aggressive, he wasn't even aggressive enough. Just by even being a nationalist. Well, he wasn't even nationalist enough. He wasn't so many things, but he was like a small step in the direction that we kind of feel like we need to go. Now, I'm a little, I don't know, sad. Sad is not the right word. A cult of Trump is bad, okay? And anybody who knows me, anybody who knows the guys that I hang out with, none of us are Trump cultists. We're very able to say Trump good, Trump bad, you did good, you did bad, criticize them, even guys in the administration, all of our folks. That being said, we need someone else more like Trump, the Trump 2.0 version. I don't know who that is just yet. But what's interesting is like Trump is still a product of the old way of status and power building. There is a new system of status and power creation underway. We're participating in it right now. And it's going to take some time before this new field bears a fruit. And I think it's going to happen. Time. We have to continue on this process. We have to continue having these conversations. We have to continue elevating some people, and they may or not work out. Elevating somebody else, they may or may not work out. But Trump showed us that we're desperate for a counterbalance to what's happening on the left. And the red pills in America are being spread every day to CRT through kindergarten and into dining room tables. So that's going to just increase more demand for this alternative voice that will, as of yet, hasn't necessarily revealed itself. There's no one out there right now where I could just be like, this guy. But
let me ask you, why is there such an inability? And I want to ask you and Verse this, because Verse, you also have experience in this area. Why do you think it's so difficult for people of our persuasion, let's say, to mount a significant sort of rallying point around maybe someone or a group? Or do you think that the problem with the right is that there tends to be just a fragmented cult of personality upon a cult of personality? And then there's, of course, the accusations, the sort of like panopticon that everyone's a Fed, right? Although some people are Feds, by the way. Some people that we mentioned in the stream. But do you think
speaking of Fed, by the way, I'm going to be feeding myself over here. And by the way, speaking of feed, sneed and feed those super chats. Anyway, go on, Jack. Yeah.
No, like, why do you think it's like so difficult to find a proper leader? Or is it that we haven't found an effective way to spread sort of, to use a totally like Deleuzian, like biological metaphor? You mentioned viruses and mimetic contagions. Why can't we spread our own sort of escape variants, put it that way? Because I know it's topical in the news. By the way, it's total bullshit. But anyway, variants. Why can't we find our own escape variants that can sort of
Takes time.
Yeah.
I think it takes time. I think that takes time. We're all just awakening. Most people, right? Most people are just waking up. It's gonna take some time. Anybody who wants to be the president is corrupt in my mind. What we need is, we don't need a Caesar. Sorry, Curtis. Curtis Yarvin sitting around saying, don't do nothing, put your hands up, get down on your knees, wait for this thing to collapse as quickly as possible so that we have the environment to bring in the king. Okay. That's basically what he's been arguing over the last few months. And maybe I got that wrong, but that's the general gist that I've gotten. We don't need a Caesar. We need a Sulla more than anything. If you catch my reference on that, come in and clean house. I mean, that dude, maybe we don't want to go that extreme. Killed thousands of people after he took the city, right? But what we really need is a Cincinnatus. We need somebody who doesn't want to serve, who doesn't want to be the leader, who's a baller general, who's going to be wartime killer. And as soon as it's done, he's going to put down the sword and go back to his farm. George Washington was a Cincinnatus, except for the fact that part of the whole reason we had the revolution is because he didn't get promoted to general in the British Army. True story. If you look it up and read about his disgruntled aspirations of trying to rise up through the British Army, and he wanted to take it out personally on him. Also, George Washington, not a successful general up until the Revolutionary War. Interesting to note too.
Yeah.
Failed.
But I think that criticism of Curtis is quite apt. But in his defense, like, to play devil's advocate, I think his argument would be that the power structures are so monumentally entrenched that it would be nigh impossible to mount any effective opposition.
Guys,
so
look at history. Do you think there hasn't been any other dissident groups ever in history that survived and flourished eventually? Come on. This happens all over the place. We're looking at an example right now, real time. It's not good for us. It's not good for anybody. But in Afghanistan, dude.
Yep.
Dissident groups can retreat, hunker down, reinforce, get strong, and rise up when the time comes. And that's going to happen here. In the liminal order, we have our eyes set on a 1,000-year time scale. We're
just like the Chinese.
Knights of Malta. That's the kind of thing that we're after. We're after sovereignty, real sovereignty, if need be. But right now, we take small steps on our way to that. And we're looking. You got to just look at history to see the way people have survived regimes that were hostile to their ideas. It's happened. In fact, the Christian posture.
I was going to say the Christian.
Look, I cannot speak by any means as an authority on this. My cursory understanding of the Christian posture throughout time has been the persecuted group with the truth.
Mm-hmm. I also think, though, we're in a nice technology. We're in a nice place in history in that technology does allow for quote unquote dissidents to have a little more sovereignty and have a little more leverage than they otherwise would.
For now.
No, I mean, not for now. I mean, fundamentally, the way that technology structures reorganizes society whenever a new major paradigm shows up, it creates different ruling class and whatever, right? And I personally believe, and as Bard wrote,
Alexander Bard, great friend of the show,
wrote the book on it. If I personally believe that we're watching the power structures be reorganized, and it's because the internet is one of those paradigm shifting, once in a lifetime type of shifts. So fortunately, even though I think that the the globalist kind of regime is kind of hunkering down and consolidating between all the different powers to kind of make this I don't know, to make this technocracy, whatever oppressive regime that we're all trying to fight against, this liberal order thing. I do also think that they're kind of fighting a losing battle because they're trying to use power and methodology from the previous paradigm to win in the new one, and I don't think that ever works.
Well, what if they want to bring in Chinese style internet control through one state corporation and immediate
doesn't work though.
Yeah, but also the people here are
consider how many Chinese people I could just talk to who get on firewall. None of it works.
Yeah,
but also the people here, at least I find that a lot of the people that we see, the Jen Psaki's of the world, they look very weak to me. They look bereft of any life force, which to me makes me think the what I think will happen and I don't want it to happen, but what I'm afraid will happen is it is far more likelier for there to be a fascist regime. Ironically enough, with all the people talking about, with the brown scare, Nazis under the bed, ironically, that is far more likely than a communist 1984 state. But I'm not saying that is good. Like, I know a lot of the younger people here in the chat look at that as being, oh my god, that's going to be a blast. Well, see how you like it when you're going to be... Well, see how you like it when you're going to be against the wall. You know what I mean?
That's what's going to happen in my personal... If I had to guess, right? We're going to have our mixture of our super sensocracy, total, like, Big Brother-esque, like, CCTV type of...
Neuralink and...
whatever type of dominant structure, but because of the technologies that enable that to happen, we're also going to have most people learn how to do things like getting around firewalls and how to block Neuralinks, and we're going to have like a simultaneous like internet dissident power structure that kind of over the next 100 years becomes like the dominant whatever, where like those people who like will start these like weird city states and like designer cities in countries as you are starting to pop up. Those people are going to become the new ruling elite at the end of the century. But for now, we have to deal with like the American version of Chinese firewall and censorship.
The race is on to defeat the centralized AI device that's going to lock us all down with an emergent mesh decentralized communication network that doesn't rely on the central backbone. That's the race, y'all. Like, let's get on it. And we're working on that already inside the liminal order. We're working on it every single day.
And that's why I'm big into blockchain. That's also why I'm big into blockchain, because that's the other.
I don't know. I think we need a Butlerian jihad before that happens.
Well, that's kind of the point here. Like, Jack, do you agree that if, let's say, this vision that you have, which I am totally for, would not come to pass, then the alternative would eventually be that too many people would get too sick of the regime today that they would create some kind of a fascistic revolution to take its place?
I'm not exactly sure what the question is there. Are you saying that like we don't have enough time and it's coming, and what are we going to do alternatively? All we have to do is look at the boys in Afghanistan. That's all we have to do. That's how you do it.
No, I'm going to rephrase the question then, just to be absolutely clear of what I mean. And by the way, somebody has their background audio. I'm not exactly sure who that is, but what I'm talking about here is when. Hold on,
it's Meyer.
I think
it's Meyer.
Oh, Andrew. Okay, here we go. Okay, so when it comes to whatever outcomes we're going to have here, if we go through, let's say, all these various phases and get to where you're talking about us getting to with decentralization, I'm 100% for that. The other alternative that I don't want that may happen is too many people who will find themselves getting squeezed by a more authoritarian, let's say, left-leaning regime, will use that as fuel, much like what happened in Germany in the 30s, to create a new fascistic regime and kind of balancing that one out.
What do you mean create a new? We are currently living in a corporate techno-fascist state, period.
I guess it's a matter of degrees. I guess it's a matter of like what you would compare that to. It's not great. I'm not saying that this is a great situation by any means.
The
but
corporations are doing the bidding of the government regime.
Yes,
we know this
explicitly.
This is fact.
Yes.
It's fact, and that is the definition of fascism. Okay, it's as soon as they're calling us all fascists, you know why? Because in their hearts they know that they're the actual fascists, right? This is a technical, by the book fascist regime that we live under. Now we're going to talk about how far is it going to go. Are we going to get on the trains? Are they going to put us in the gulags? This is the hot gulag summer. It's going to be different, man. It's 21st century. Who knows what it's going to be? It's going to be some version of depersoning, deplatforming, not allowed to do financial transactions, not allowed to travel without the right book or passport or stamps or whatever.
In my country, it's already
shadow
happening.
banning. You're shadow banned.
No, but it's already happening. The guy who advises Justone, Gerald Butts, he looks like a hideous cryptoid, by the way. He says that if you don't want to get the Fauci ouchie, let's call it for YouTube purposes, then you can choose that, but you don't have a right to access government services. So if you need government healthcare, which we have in Canada, which is total piece of shit, by the way, not that I say we should go to private American system, but then you don't have a right to go in any public building or travel unless you get the Fauci ouchie. And so, but a vaccine, a Fauci ouchie, that historically has been rushed, unlike any other.
No, but still, I'm gonna
know.
disagree. I'm gonna disagree a little bit here, just because I want to keep things in perspective. If we talked
Lev,
about history
do you want to
before,
be run by Matty Iglesias,
Gio,
or do you want to be run by Bronze Age pervert? Right now, say it. Pick
Gio,
one.
hold on. No,
one, Lev.
you're distracting me from the point. Okay, the point that I'm getting to here is
he's
we
weaseling
gotta
out. He's
keep,
weaseling out
you
right
gotta
now.
keep, yes, I'm weaseling out. You gotta keep history in perspective here, I think, when it comes to, if we're talking about this being a fascistic regime, my question is compared to what? Because again, I don't want, for all the people in the chat, I don't want to keep bringing up Russia, so I won't. I'm gonna bring up all the 20th century that we've experienced, where it was busing people into death camps, and it was doing, that element. Like, we can't compare what we have right now to that.
Yeah, we can.
Had before, Lev,
No, wait, well, yes and no. Like, as Jack just said, like, literally, like, definition of, like, Mussolini fascism, like, we got that now. Like the textbook, open a dictionary, what is fascism? We have that today.
I think body count matters when it comes to that.
Here's the problem I have, Lev. Like, I get your concern with this opposing fascistic regime that may rise to counter to as a counterweight, but for how much we care about free speech and how much we care about classical liberalism, we're gonna lose, right? Because if you say, well, you can have free speech to the people who actively want to censor us and to destroy us, literally, we're gonna lose, right? It's the fact of the matter that cheaters win, right? You're only a cheater when people realize, hey, you cheated us. Hey, you're a cheater, but cheaters win. Cheaters win, and we need to realize this. And this is happening, by the way. We care about freedom of speech. We care about certain values. But if you refuse to assimilate with us or to have our values, adopt freedom of speech from me, then you don't get to have your freedom of speech, right? And that's what's happening right now. And to what degree it will happen, I don't think it will go all the way. Like what was said before. I mean, right now what we're seeing is two different ways of becoming elite. Two different ways of becoming elite, and that's like through the internet, a more like democratized through the internet sort of fashion, and the old style, like what Jack said. The Trump style, of gaining popularity, gaining power. And I think in the long run, we're going to self-correct ourselves. I mean, we are waking up to this I need some water, but fascistic regime through this more democratized sense where, yes, it's taking long because people are waking up on an individual basis, right? There's no top-down information. There's no top-down person with a megaphone saying, hey, wake up, red pills, red pills, red pills. But it's going to take long because people will find out on their own time. And I have confidence that these people who are red-pilled do believe in freedom of speech. They have the values. But certain people who refuse to play our game, to be with us and assert our framework with us, we shouldn't afford those privileges to them.
Well, to Daniel's point, I mean, the fact that we've gotten this far, I mean, just the other day, like, things that you see kind of shock you in such a visceral, like, void staring level. There is that video about some trans person trying to breastfeed. Did you see this one, Lev? Like, the fact that
no, I was stuck on the rainbow monkey with the dildo.
Yeah, or the rainbow, whatever. But the point is, we've gotten
both of these, probably for the best.
It was this trans person pretending to breastfeed. It was like the most creepiest void staring thing you've ever seen in your life. The fact that we've gotten this far, that we've welched on our own civilization. I mean, this kind of.
But again, Gio, that's different than writing a nasty post about an elected official and then getting arrested a couple of hours later. That's the kind of level of authoritarianism I'm talking about.
Leaders that we could respect. I mean, maybe. Anyways, Jack.
Yes, but you see that, Jack. That's what I'm trying to figure out here. How do we avoid writing? Okay, that's what I want to get to.
We're getting there. No, it's happening. It's happening already. John Robb, one of the most brilliant strategists and analysts who understands the combination of politics, technology, and war. He is number one. Everyone should follow him. John Robb, 2 Bs, okay? He calls it the long night. The long night is coming, and it's going to be a window closing. It's not going to be gradual until all the light is snuffed out. It's going to be boom, gone. Because the moment that there is some sort of software that's possible enough to track everything that we're saying, control everything that we're doing, rate everything that we're doing, limit your travel abilities, limit your ability to communicate, all these things, then that is coming. Now, one thing that I've been thinking about quite a bit. We're all relying on this new technology infrastructure. We are using it to communicate. We're using it to do commerce. The government is using it to communicate. They're using it to control. They're using it to control the people. They seem to be very focused on that. There's going to be cracks. Dude, did you know you could take your iPad, throw it out the window, and never have to use the internet again? That's true. That's true. It's crazy.
Wait, no way. That's
I
impossible.
can't, but in theory, you could.
I can in theory.
This is a theoretical possibility.
If you get to the point at which your regime is trying to kill you and limit your ability to do commerce and to eat and to drink and whatever, you'll throw that thing in the trash and you'll find your way. That will happen. People eat fucking shoes, dude. You'll throw your iPad in the garbage. Okay. So there's going to be cracks in the system, and there's going to be places where people can retreat to if it comes to that, which it might. It's scary to think about because the technology is going to be like a binary moment where it's just done. And whomever's in control of that at the time may have legs for a long time.
But Jack, to push back, and then I wanted to get to Verse and Daniel again. I don't know where Andrew went. To push back a little bit, if you look at, and I'm not one to talk because, well, you can probably tell. But if you look at the American people, how many people are willing to eat stews consisting of grasses in the Appalachian Hills? For example, how many people are willing to live like a Pashtun warrior in Waziristan when the fucking predator drone comes and they go further into the cave and they make guns by hand and they have their tongues ripped out? How many people are willing to live that lifestyle to oppose a predatory and alien regime that is willing to really destroy them?
Well, not everybody has to. That's why you've got warriors. That's why you got farmers, and that's why you got priests.
That's true. But do you think that people would, for the sake of their own longevity, do you think that the narratives that they're pushing, for example, I mentioned the radicalization one, that they're so sort of effective that before we get to the point where people are seriously going to consider living such a, let's say, different lifestyle that's counter to what, going into the pod and eating the bugs, do you think that most people, they'll just accept the soma, they'll accept becoming a human battery, going into the VR port in the Existence Neuralink and having 1 million orgasms with anime girls? And do you think that's
is there a waiting list for this?
Yeah.
That's what I mean.
They're doing a rollout for that.
Yeah.
Right now.
Verse already got
The
like
anime girls
the
are
top
furry
positions for that.
sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We got 2D waifus, soon to be in 3D. But that's the trap. That's the hedonic treadmill they're trying to put you on, so that you don't.
Right.
They'll keep you fed. They'll keep you, with the 2D.
You'll have your soy protein and your.
Yeah,
Well, this is kind of what Jason Giorgiani was talking about. He was talking about how in the future there's going to be this two class of people, kind of like the Eloi and the Morlocks, only instead of the Morlocks, they're going to be robot people, like half people, half robots, that'll eventually be replaced by pure robots. Meanwhile, you'll have the Overmen, who are going to be like the old gods of Atlantis, aided by their technology. But I don't really see it working in terms of the people who we have right now. They don't look like Atlantean gods. They don't think like Atlantean gods, it seems to me. I mean, they don't seem to measure up to a certain level of like the founding fathers, let's say, or whoever you want to point at and say like this would be an elite that I would follow, like that's really what I'm trying to figure out here. Can we, and we talked about this before, but can we grow this new elite that would be able to preserve civilization through this change, which I think is sort of inevitable. I think people may end up getting roboticized a la Dr. Robotnik from Sonic the Hedgehog in the future, but I don't know.
Refuse. Well, no, we don't. So I think that's actually a yes and no, right? So I think like a lot of the people think you're going to get a chip in your head and blah, blah, blah. There's really no need because we're walking around with all of human knowledge in the history of humanity, like in our pockets. So there's no real need to put that in your head. However, people are going to still do it because they want to, like, you know, kind of like people are going to start using the Neuralink because they want to feel like they're trendy, and then people will do it, but there is no real need to do it. So I think a lot of people are going to push back. But then again, we have the whole trans thing is a transhumanism in disguise, on like a soft transhumanism. So
Right.
I don't know. I can't really speak. I don't know what people will do. People
Now, Philosophy
do a lot of
Tube is
things.
going to be the god of, and Vaush, they're going to be up there, and
Vaush is a CIA plan, so
yeah, obviously.
Yeah.
But,
And by the
he
way, Jack.
allegedly, by the way,
Yes.
out of the $500,000 he gets every year, he allegedly only pockets 1,000.
Oh man,
100,000. But
and,
allegedly.
and Jack, I want to be respectful of your time. I don't know how much you have right now. What I wanted to do is any other questions people here have, and then I want to go to super chats as well as any final remarks. But also before that, any thoughts on the robot question? If not, we can move on.
Robot question.
Guys in the liminal order, maybe they're just attracted to what we've got going on, or maybe this is a trend nationwide, but everyone to a man inside the LO wants to increase their physical their physical sovereignty, food sovereignty, water sovereignty, physical security sovereignty, financial sovereignty. Okay, we all of us are looking at that. I've been looking at land. We've got a concentration of LO guys in Appalachia, Eastern Tennessee, Southwestern Virginia, West Virginia, Western North Carolina. Guys are moving there. We are setting up homesteads, collective homesteads. We are deciding to, this is not the old days where you want to like go off grid. No. You want to get off the grids you want off of and get on the grids you want to be on. Okay. And that is the future. It's like being direct connected to your water and food and physical security, as well as then being connected via some sort of network to the rest of the network that you want to be connected to. The one that helps give you meaning, the one that helps give you support, the one that gives you community, fellowship, financial security, business opportunities, enrichment, socialization, spouses for your children. Okay, this is off the grid, on the grid. It's got to be a combination to have your full sovereignty. Now, will there be an uptick in Wacos and Ruby Ridges come this decade?
That's what I was gonna ask. Yeah,
it's possible.
Have you heard of Osho?
Osho. The name sounds familiar, but I don't know.
Wild Country.
Right?
Oh, the mystic
Wild
Osho.
Country. Oh yeah, definitely. I watched that whole documentary.
Okay,
wow.
So I think unironically, maybe Liminal Order or these other groups, maybe they should take over local legislators in some pissy town nobody cares about.
We have spreadsheets of county sizes, population sizes, type of structure of government, what it would take for us, voting requirements, what it would take for us to move into a jurisdiction, take over a jurisdiction, because that's what you have then. Fucking police, education. You're in charge of your schools and your sheriff.
But it would be less difficult to actually bomb an American town and Waco you than it would if you had some David Koresh style compound out in the middle of nowhere, right? So that's why Osho, they got away with
civil war.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's civil war, not just the government being tyrannical.
Right.
So it's like difference.
By the way, I just want to say that it wasn't Osho himself. It was his crazy second in command. She was the one that did all that. He distanced himself.
Highly competent.
Yeah, Sheila.
That lady was highly competent.
Yeah.
And by the way, Francis Ventura had this question, which I will phrase. I mean, you could see it in the chat over here. If you see the chat, it's in the gallery view. So as far as just financial advice going forward, like what would be the primary thing you would recommend for people to be able to maintain a certain quality of life in the midst of a lot of these things that are happening? Like, what would be some of your...
Today or in the future?
Today. Today and then in the future. Like,
so what we do in the liminal order is we train people up to be what I call info homesteaders. People, this is an analogy, people who can go into the information landscape, mine the information hills for gold, mine the information hills for protection, sovereignty, and security, and do it without being dependent upon the Leviathan. Okay, that's number one. If you are attached to a corporation or the Leviathan, you are fragile, you are not resilient, combining concepts there. You are also at the fucking mercy of the people that you hate and who hate you. You got to get disconnected from the Leviathan in any way possible. You've got to build your own capacity to be an info homesteader. We are in still the first inning of the internet, guys. There is money to be made. There is positions to be had, stakes to take, to claim. Get out there and make it work. Now, long term, our vision for the liminal order is to move what we call the gross network product, which is the economic activity of everyone in our network, to move it from outside of the barrier to inside the barrier, so that we can conduct the economic activity that we need for ourselves inside with our own people who share our own values, who see the world that we do the same way we do, and we're working towards a common goal. So we're moving the GNP, gross network product, inside of the liminal order as best as possible. And we're already seeing that. We've got CEOs of startup companies that you would know, backed by venture capitalists that you would know, where our guys in the liminal order participated in the syndication. We incubate business, we incubate guys that are trying to become info homesteaders, and we're cultivating this whole culture of being able to earn on your own separate from the Leviathan. There's a whole culture building. The tech guys, the crypto guys like Pomp and Balaji and those guys, they see the future the same way that we do. I talk to Balaji all the time in DM. We talk about how are we going to build this vision that you're talking about. Fortunately, he doesn't know exactly just yet, but we're still making our progress. Those guys on the crypto, the Miami scene, those guys.
Shout out to my homies.
Okay, cool. They are very quietly establishing an anti-woke, non-woke capital environment, a non-woke corporate environment, a non-woke tech environment. A lot of the guys in tech, they don't like this, what's going on. They really don't. Half of our members, of our 700 members in the LO, are tech guys. Half.
Mm-hmm. Does it start, by the way, from certain companies banning talking about politics in the workplace? Like I've noticed a few companies, even Facebook,
like
believe
Coinbase,
it or not, have started
that guy
it.
got shredded though.
Well, no, I think
base credit for it, but he was doing it to not be woke though. That's why he banned politics.
Yeah.
Well, I think Facebook also banned politics discussion in the workplace.
They have politics is ingrained in Facebook.
No. I think they did.
Sandberg there, and she's gonna.
Well, the people themselves, but I'm talking about the actual conversations within. I see that as a positive sign. They did, as far as I understand, ban political discussions. But I want to make sure we get to super chats. But before that, Verse, Daniel, Gio, any questions for Jack before I move on to supers?
Well, Verse, you could talk about crypto a little bit.
No, I mean, Jack. A lot of what Jack's describing is kind of like what I also feel like when I talk about like netocratic stuff and how people who are like these the net aristocracy kind of comes together. They create these insular things, and like Bart even talks about how capitalism is about exploiting and taking advantage of opportunity, whereas on the internet it's the opposite, where he calls it like imploitation, where it's like you want to create these like networks that are exclusive, so that you can like hoard the use like your inner network to create more value, which is literally what Jack is describing.
So you're saying that the internet is the opposite of the classic quote from Marx, which is kind of trad in some ways, that all that is solid melts into air. Capital is a solve, a typical Deleuze-Nick Land argument. Capital is a solvent. You're saying that the netocratic political order is going to be exclusionary, tribalistic, and it's going to negate just use value of things that can universalize.
And no.
It's against you.
So it's tribalistic, right? But obviously it's not from people who are necessarily near you. It's people who have similar values or like of similar usefulness. But also that by the time it's actually sold, it's already lost the value. So like typically speaking, like people already kind of talk about this, where it's
like memes, right? Like as soon as it hits the mainstream, like look at
I mean literally sold. Like
people,
for example, can tell, like we call it grifting now. Like once something kind of lost its edge and value, that's when it sells. And at that kind of like when Yahoo sold at the top, like we just don't value someone who sells off, because
when Lindy Man was profiled in the New York Times. When Lindy Man was profiled in the New York Times.
Yeah, exactly. Like, it's similar to that. Where once it leaves that exclusionary network, that's when you go, okay, it's lost its value. That's why they sold it off. So it's kind of like dead already. The imploitation is more important on the internet.
And what we're seeing, there are VC syndicates out there that are anti-woke explicitly. The crypto, not foundations, but like not even philanthropy, but like crypto VC world, people that have made their money outside of the system, who hate the system, who are literally working every day to buck the system. They don't want to create more corporations that are just going to be the system. They want to create things that are going to avoid all that stuff and fight back against it. And it's out there. If you have an idea that's going to be anti-woke, there's the anti-woke capital out there that will find you. In fact, if you join the Liminal Order, we got a whole syndicate group, we got a whole accredited investors group, and we got a whole business advisory group that incubates these kind of things and takes them all the way through to funding and all the way out into the marketplace.
See, that's the thing, Jack. I mean, the problem with a lot of right-wing groups is that everyone wants to be, and I know it's totally ironic because as a writer and an artist myself, everyone wants to be a podcaster or writing articles like NRX. No one wants to do any sort of practical thing like have a bunch of bankers and investors and people that know the financial system and know the political system in and out to actually do anything to achieve meaningful.
Well, Gio, this is where you're wrong, and you're wrong because of FAIR. Now, FAIR, it's not right-wing, but it is anti-woke. So, Jack, have you heard of FAIR, the Foundation Against Intolerance and Racism?
No.
So I'm putting a link to it right here. It would be an interesting thing for you to look at.
You may have known, some
okay,
people,
okay.
There's a lot of on there. The board is mixed. The board is mixed.
Yeah.
To say the least.
Ayan Hersey Ali, Melissa Chen, Daryl Davis, Niall Ferguson, Steven Pinker.
I thought about supporting them, but then I saw that there was a bunch of names on there. I was like, I can't do it. That's like the fucking Harper's letter with all the good guys left on.
Yeah.
But
it's got
to
Steven
their
Pinker on there. I mean, he took Epstein. Never
mind. Whatever, Gio. No, but actually, we're gonna have Kenny Zhu on our show. He's coming up, and he's on their board of advisors as well. And I got to meet a lot of very interesting people through there. But the thing that I would say about FAIR is that at least they're going out there and helping out the teachers who have been
right. They're an educational outreach enterprise. They're trying to give teachers and educators a way, a language, words, a lexicon in order to fight some of the stuff that we're seeing, especially stuff that Rufo and Lindsay are working on. Yeah. By the way, I got Lindsay and Rufo coming on together in a few weeks. That's going to be awesome as well. But look, like guys, what I'm doing is grassroots. We are literally starting with get into the gym. So we're starting there. Sun and Steel, it's a real thing. Saving the world starts in the squat rack. Then you take care of yourself, then your family, then your community, then the nation. That's what we're grassroots, ground up. But we've got guys that are looking to change themselves today. We've got guys that are also looking to change the world and have the capability, the means, the motivation to do it. So what we're doing is just one part of the great number of things that we need in order to win at the end of the day, whatever that exactly looks like. But we're not afraid to do the nitty gritty, man. This is we are starting with the nucleus and building out from there because everything we got right now is rotten to the core.
Absolutely.
It's just fascinating to me how long it has taken for people to actually take forward steps in order to combat what is going on. Well, first, it's fascinating to me how long it has been since our institution started rotting and how we've just said, oh, like it's gonna be fine, it'll be fine. You know, I remember, with the university debate, a lot of people said, it'll be fine once they get into the workforce. They'll see how real life,
the real world.
That's such a boomer opinion.
And now we're freaking out and everything. But it really does fascinate me how long it's taken us to identify the problem and act on it. And the big question now is it too late? Because a lot of these problems are generational. We're not going to solve them in one or two steps. And the left has taken decades to get to this point. And it will take a good amount of time. I mean, decades to reverse it. For example, if you want to solve the high single motherhood rate in the Black community, that's a generational problem. There's going to be a generation or two who will feel the brunt of the attack, and you have to go through those generations and cut the cycle there so later on, children can actually have two parents in a household,
Well,
so
I wanted to ask, like, Jack, you have only 5 minutes left. What about the question of the dropping fertility rates? Sorry to cut you off, Dan, but just you have to go, Jack. Dropping fertility rates. How do men marry? Monogamy's been totally destroyed. Dating apps are like totally psyoping us into oblivion. How do we solve that practically? How can the vast majority of men find meaningful relationships?
And then super chats real quick, and then super chats.
Get your ass in the squat rack, step one.
Oh, fuck.
Honestly,
Well,
dude.
Yeah.
It all starts from there. This is an internal fight. You got to fight. No one is come on, guys. No one is coming to save you.
And
no
look,
one.
I know I'm a skinny dude. Like, look at my wrist; it's very skinny. But I was lifting. I was lifting last time 245 pounds in the deadlift several times, like 5 times. And I lifted maybe 245 more times, and so on and so forth. So I'm getting there because I have the determination. And one last thing I wanted to show you before super chats: if you take a look at your logo over here, Liminal Order. I don't know who came up with the specific design. It's a very nice looking design, but it reminds me of something that we see time and time again in all these ancient civilizations. See, like this wing spread over here. We see that in Persian culture, the Farvahar. To me, that whole thing with the tree, exactly, like this tree is the tree of it's the tree of life. And what that means to me, at least, is you see that in the 7 chakras. You see that in all these systems of like the human body being this temple that you can develop, and there being like this liquid spiritual energy that you can transmute, like a sexual energy that you could transmute so that it goes up and eventually it reaches the point where you unite with God. So that's like what all the mystery schools were talking about. I know I brought that up before, but I just want to say that I don't know if that was intentional, the picture of the logo to symbolize that, but that's at least what I saw.
The bird is a raven to symbolize transformation and knowledge seeking, and bringing a discussion from the spirit world into the meat world, right? The raven in Nordic mythology would go back and forth between the land of the gods and the land of the men, and it's about transformation, right? This is all about transformation. The laurel wreath is about brotherhood and community, and the eye is about knowledge and seeking knowledge and spreading the good light. That's what we're all about, man. And our core values are represented in that logo, and it's represented in everything that we do.
And real quick, super chat, Super Iron Bob, $5. We allowed the state to take over the local charities groups that were cultural institutions that would coordinate these events, rebuild those. I think you're on the way to doing that. Another Definitely. Super Iron Bob, $5. The establishment of a permanent bureaucracy that's not accountable to the executive, where they cannot be fired, means checks and balances do not exist. Well, that is
was very interesting. I mean, I read some of the Federalist Papers. I'm still going through them, and I don't think, from what I've read, when Hamilton talks about the executive branch, I mean, the reason why we have one president is because he talks about we want unity in the executive, and in the Federalist Papers he talks about how if you had a council as an executive, it would take longer for us to execute. But another thing he talked about was responsibility. And he said that in the council, you don't know who's responsible for what, And so, and this is also his justification for why the president nominates a justice, and then the Senate just confirms it, and it's interesting because it's crazy how in the Federalist Papers, I mean, Hamilton makes it pretty clear that the executive must be unitary. There must be one person so we can see the wrongdoing. But we've ended up having a huge bureaucracy in the executive branch that's obfuscated our views so much. And we don't know what's going on anymore. And that's just something we need to cure with. That's something we need to fix.
Well, real quick, I just want to make sure because Jack has to go quick over here. So Super Iron Bob, $20. Oh, Manischewitz, as my uncle used to say. Demand better elites bring back noblesse oblige. Then we have 25 Polish dollars, which is around $6 from Polish ambassador, the actual ambassador of Poland, mind you. That's how big our stream is. This new elite would require a value virtue system behind them. We failed those because all options are valid, all opinions are valid. No, ours are correct. Get lost. Polish ambassador, 10 Polish dollars. Sorry, it's too late. Imagine bad. Now imagine more. So there we go. But I want to leave on a good note by saying, Jack, thank you so much for the work that you've done and the work that you are doing right now.
Mm-hmm.
You are an inspiration to all the people out there. So I hope you keep doing the work, and we're all going to be doing the work as well to rise up and rise beyond whatever limitations we currently have in this world.
Thanks a lot, Lev. I appreciate it. Thanks a lot, Daniel and Gio. Thanks for having me
Thank
on.
you.
It was a good time. 2 hours went faster than I thought. And, guys, just find me out there on Twitter at Jack Murphy Live. Sign up for the Liminal Order mailing list. New emails every Monday, liminal-order.com. Subscribe to the YouTube channel, Jack Murphy Live. Find me, Jack Murphy Live, anywhere on the internet. Thanks very much, guys. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Will do. Guys, subscribe to Jack Murphy right now.
Maybe you should come on again with Alexander Bard. That would be interesting.
Oh man, the Battle of the Beards. That would be quite something. But guys, listen, we gotta grow this channel.
By the way.
Oh, I don't know. We gotta bring him back for the end. But guys, please subscribe right now. You know we gotta grow the channel. You know how shy we are about asking this. You know how delicate we are about it. But despite that, I'm going to resist the shyness, and I'm just going to step out and say it. You guys gotta subscribe, because if you subscribe, we grow. And we are on all the major platforms. This is streaming on Odyssey. This is streaming on Facebook. Could you believe that? Yes, we have a Facebook page, facebook.com/breaktherules. So you guys better join it up. I'm not gonna rat on you. I'm not gonna dox you. Yeah, so facebook.com/.
You have to share with your friends, show people, spread the conversation. Today I was reading on the train, The Passion of the Western Mind. And I'm going to keep this quick, but in school, like AP World, you're taught, well, the reason why people were not super smart in the medieval age is because of Christianity. But I've learned from that book that, well, that's really a bad comparison, because, even during the time of ancient Greece, Socrates was put to death for being unorthodox. And so this idea of a dogmatic, religion stopping people from thinking for themselves is bonkers. And so we need to find this information for ourselves, right? I learned the false information from school, but we need to teach each other. We need to share the video, subscribe, like it up, right? Because
bell, don't forget about the bell.
If the algorithm fails us, share it. Let people know that we're having these conversations. You've heard it, we have to build it from the ground up.
Absolutely. And this is why we are also on Odyssey. And Odyssey is a very important network that's coming out right now, because everything that is said here goes on there permanently. Nobody can get rid of it. It's there forever. So odyssey.com/breaktherules. No 3, just break the rules. So go there. And we also have, let's see what we have. We have Twitch. We are live streaming on Twitch, twitch.tv/break the rules for now. Let's not jinx it, Gio. Then we have over here dlive.tv/break the rules. We are there as well. Here we go. So be sure to subscribe to us on DLive as well. And what else we got?
And Modern Hermeticist wants a bone to pick with you, Lev, for your.
Oh boy! Look, I have these inner visions, and everything I say.
Antichrist.
Yes, good.
By the way, speaking of which, I'm going to come out with a series where I dramatically narrate and give some commentary to the Book of Revelation. Hopefully the first video is going to drop either tomorrow or Friday. So, yeah.
I love this comment, by the way. Somebody wrote here, Jack hitting the road. Let's see, who was that?
Hit the road, Jack.
Yes, exactly. That was a nice pun. But anyway, we are on all these networks. We are also on all the audio platforms, by the way. That is very important that you guys go to the audio platforms.
Yeah, I can't listen to Spotify, but you guys can.
Yeah, break the rules.
I have to pay for it in Canada.
breaktherules.captivate.fm.
Yeah, it's
that is where you get all of the audio platforms. And by the way, if you guys want every single platform that we are on, we also finally have a link tree. So if you don't want,
I have to actually do my link tree soon. So
Yes, so if you guys go to the link
Especially,
tree,
Instagram, you only have like one link,
you're going to be able to find everything there. Let's see, here it is, link tree, break the rules. I'm posting it in the chat, so everybody be sure to, oh no, that was a weird link. Hold on, here we go. Link tree, break the rules, go there, or be square. And all the audio platforms, give us 5 stars. Look, there are 78 people here right now. Give us 5 stars right now. Get your Apple device. We are on Apple Podcasts. So give us 5 stars and help us grow there as well. I know. This, Gio, this is what I'm talking about.
Because boomers will listen to Apple Podcast. So we got to up our Facebook game. I think we got to spread it to Modern Hermetics says, I have no comment on the intervisions, can't debate those. I just debate the equation of chakras with all other categorized systems from different cultures. Yeah, I agree, Lev. You got to cut down on the perennialist takes, buddy. It's kind of true. I mean, you're all over the place.
I don't care that I'm all over the place. I feel that I am right, and that is why I'm correct.
Lev, who has a PhD in history here? You
who has,
or modern hermeticist?
Who has Kundalini going up and down their spine? Who has Kundalini going up and down the spine? That's what the books can't teach you.
Plenty of Kundalini. I can guarantee you.
Gundalini, you mean? Anyway, I kid.
Lev, say right now, Lev, say you hate the Antichrist.
I hate the Antichrist.
Okay,
there.
Thank you. There you go.
All right, now you know that I'm safe. Yeah. Anyway, now
this
you guys.
This podcast hates the Antichrist. It's very true.
Yes. Okay, so now what else? We got Spotify. Let me open up the Spotify link as well over here. 1 second. This is where you can.
Who are we gonna have on Thursday, Lev?
On Thursday. Okay, so on Thursday, I'm trying to get a hold of Ayla Girl. I don't know what's up, but if that does not happen, I have another stream that is lined up. The stream that I have lined up is going to be an astrology stream. Speaking of the occult, that's going to be, yes, our third astrology stream. Brittany Venti's coming, and we are going to have Athena Hyatt coming in as well. And we're going to see if Charles is also going to be able to make it. And I'm inviting a few more people. And then for the people who actually want, like, towards the end, like the last 3 people to get their readings done on the air, I'm going to set up...
read Athena's and Brittany's?
Yes.
Michael
I'm going to
Scotto,
set up...
assuming?
Yes, I'm going to set up another auction so that you guys can send super chats our way, and whoever gets the highest super chats are the ones that are going to be read, but just like the top 3, and everybody else would also be read afterwards, but that would not be during the show. So just like we did it last time, this is what's going down, this is what's crack-a-lackin', so be sure to subscribe, and lastly...
Get Brittany to really, like, promote the hell out of that one, because, like, to her fans, to be like, I'm having my horoscope read...
Absolutely.
No, that'd be amazing. Women love that shit. So that's
it shall be done. And Daniel, do you like horoscopes? Do you like us? I mean, you were there at the national.
I mean, the way, what was his name, Michael?
Yeah, Michael Scotto. You met him.
The way Michael explained it was interesting, but the girly, this is my sign, yeah, and like I do this because of my sign is outrageously stupid, and I want no part of that. So I don't know, but ultimately, I think today was a great conversation. It's definitely not going to be as good as the astrology conversation you're going to have on Thursday. But yeah, I am not into astrology that much, though. Michael has opened my ears a bit,
and maybe he'll open your third eye eventually.
Astrology
too.
is just racism for women. I forget who said that. I think it was either Sean. He's no longer with us. I don't mean he's dead. I mean he's dead.
Every time you say it might as well be a death in that case.
Yeah, well, because like people doxed him and he was going into the military and it wasn't good. No, it was either him or it may have been Verse or it may have been ZHP that said it. But I think someone originally said astrology is just racism for women. So that's...
So here's who we have coming up, by the way.
Could we combine astrology and racism? I wonder.
I think that's what they were doing before the Third Reich. Like they had all those mystics.
Devi, was she doing that?
I believe so. But anyway, we have Tuesday, July 20th, Travis Brown, twitter.com/becomethesignal. He directed the Woke Reformation, and he is going to be there with the Prudentialist and also with Uber Boyo. Uber Boyo is back.
Oh my God.
Then we are going to have David Reboy coming in Thursday, July 22.
Nice. Jack also had him on his show.
Yeah, so that should be a very...
Can we get Darren Beatty? I wonder.
We'll see. And then we're gonna have Indian Bronson with him as well. So that should be
Nice.
a fun episode. And let's see who else we got. Then we have the E-Girl E-Grill stream Tuesday, July 27th. So Gio, you
Who's
better.
gonna be on it?
Well, you're gonna be on it with an actual grill,
obviously.
so you got to actually grill
Move
during
heaven
the
and
live
earth
stream.
to be with. Yeah, I could. With my iPhone, I probably could.
Exactly. Well, Gio, let us know which e-girls you want to bring on. I want to bring on Bimbo Ubermensch. I mean, Venti's definitely coming, and let us know. Let us know who else you have in mind.
Let's go down. I wanted to get Mommy Milkers on. She'd be pretty good.
Excellent.
My friend Alicia. I mean, if default friend comes, then my friend Alicia would come.
Yes, get in touch and let's make that happen. Next, we are going to have Kenny Zhu, who I mentioned before, who was on the Fair Board of Advisors. He is coming in Thursday, July 29th, and the Prudentialist is also going to be joining us on that one. We are going to have Tuesday, August 3, Logo Daedalus and Amy Therese.
Oh!
Woo!
That's going to be a barn burner. Imagine them two going at it. Oh my God. You don't want to miss it.
Get a room, you two. Anyway, then we're going to have
Wilford. He's married.
Wilford Riley, Thursday, August 5. He is going to be coming in with us. That's going to be... And Daniel, you're going to be joining... Wilford Riley. So for those who don't, I will tell you right now who Wilford Riley is. So Wilford Riley, he has a Wikipedia entry, is an American political scientist. He's an assistant professor of political science at Kentucky State. He holds a PhD in political science in Southern Illinois University. So he wrote the book Hate, Crime, Hoax: How the Left is Selling a Fake Race War.
Oh, yeah.
Yes,
I'd like to come on and talk about that.
Please, absolutely.
Well, Lev, I know that certain people, you know that I know it's such a stupid anti-Semitic A Wyatt Man meme.
Don't make me get your dad on.
You know what you doing there, Merchant? And it's like the like spray painting the swastika on his.
Yes,
own,
no, it's not Merchant. It's Rabbi. But yes.
Yeah, but sorry, what you doing? Yeah.
Yeah. How do I know these things more? How do I know these proper things more than you? You're the one
because you're probably subjected to it more than.
All right, here next.
Yeah.
Riley participated. Well, speaking of that, Riley participated in the regionally televised debate against Jared Taylor.
So, oh my God.
Yeah, so we're gonna have plenty to talk about.
Could we get Jared Taylor on, or you be comfortable with that, Lev?
I mean, look,
He's certainly less glowing than like Richard Spencer, in my opinion.
Look. Eventually, I want to have everybody on.
Eventually, we want to have Keith Woods against Matthew Siegel. Keith Woods versus Matthew Siegel. We want to meme this into reality.
And Matthew Siegel, if you know this, he is an actual seagull, so he's probably going to be going and like trying to pry his eyes out.
I'm sure when he takes drugs at Burning Man, he thinks he's an actual seagull.
So next we are gonna have Uncle Doomer coming in, and that's going to be Thursday, August 12th. And we are also going to have...
What are we talking about with Uncle Doomer?
We'll see. We're going to have Tuesday, August 17th, Patriot J. Then we're going to have another J coming in Thursday, August 19th, Jason Giorgiani. That is happening Thursday, August 19th. Then we're going to have another J coming in. All these J's. Hotep Jesus. He's coming in Tuesday, August 24th.
Wait, who's Patriot J?
Patriot J, he is a rapper. He's a friend of Anomalies. He's a cool dude. I think he's also a Hotep as well. So that should be a fun stream.
Well, how do you spell his name?
Patriot J. Just look it up on Twitter, and you should be able to get it. Actually, his Twitter is Sir Hottest. I love that name, Sir Hottest. That's very nice. So then we are going to have, after Hotep Jesus, we're going to have Uber Boyo and Jonathan Peugeot Thursday, August 26th. And then we are going to have Count Dankula Thursday, September 2. So as you could see, we have like a
Wait, did you say Count Dankula?
Yeah, I said Count Dankula.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Not that I agree with him on... well, that'd be pretty interesting.
Yeah,
actually.
so we have a broad array of guests. We have a broad array of guests.
Dankula,
we are growing.
That's something else.
But look, guys, let me be frank here. The only way we can keep doing this, you know what I'm about to say. Patreon.com/breaktherules. Here, this guy, this is the last time you're going to see him on the screen, because tomorrow, definitely legit, is going to have a new home. Hello, everybody. I'm definitely legit. Bark, 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 bark. This is the last time you're going to see me. This is the last time Lev is going to make this impression of me. Bark, 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 bark. So, guys, this magnet is going to be somebody's. It's not going to be yours because this is it. Definitely legit. Is leaving the pound and is going to a new doghouse. But you guys can have another magnet because we're going to be making more of these magnets, even maybe more definitely legit magnets. We'll see. They're going to be completely random. If you guys become, well, before the $20 tier, if you become $5 tier Patreons, you are going to get access to the Discord, well, certain places in the Discord that the civilians can't get to. You'll be able to type in the BTR chat while the stream is going on. You will be able to also enjoy the MP3 formats of the show as soon as they come out, before they come out to anybody else. Lucky you. And not only that, lucky you, you're going to have exclusive Patreon only content that we are going to be making soon. We're talking about a few very interesting things down the horizon with that. And yeah, and certain Patreon only things like that Shizo post. Gio, do you remember that one that we did?
We have to, well, we should think of something else for the Patreon exclusive.
Yes, well, we're going to, yes.
I was gonna say I have to go now, but I enjoyed the conversation. I'm definitely I can't wait to talk about the you say you was gonna have Patriot J on. I think that would be an interesting conversation too.
Absolutely.
But yeah, definitely send me the forms. I'll check out what conversations we'll be having in the future. And if I feel like I can add something to the conversation, I definitely
how do you spell
up.
his name? Patriot, how do you do it?
Well, just type in Patriot J, but I also Patriot, but here.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Gio, what the fuck is wrong with you?
Patriot.
Here.
Yeah, it's right. It's right there. Sir Hottest. But
yes,
yeah, so I'm gonna log off now. Thank you for having me again.
Thank you, Daniel. Everybody.
Holy shit, this guy?
Yeah.
Wow. Oh, wow. He's pretty popular. Thank you, Daniel. Sorry, I'm just man, I'm gonna follow him right now.
Yes.
But yeah. Thank you for having me. For anybody,
guys, follow Daniel on Twitter right now. I posted his link over here. Please follow Daniel.
I'm a new one, but you know you can go through. I posted a thread about what's happening in Cuba.
This Kodak White.
I posted
Cuba. What's going on with Cuba?
Yeah, I just posted about how people will say that this is what's going on in Cuba is not really about fighting socialism or whatever. And in my thread, I go and I talk about how socialism, communism, and authoritarianism in any sense is related, and how the left tries to gaslight you and saying, well, that's just communism, not socialism, or it's just authoritarian regimes, not actual socialism or communism. And I talk about how the anointed share a vision in all three of these systems.
But why are they rebelling? What's happening with Cuba? Is there recent events or Raul?
Well, the media spin is that it's just COVID-19 and the lack of COVID-19 resources, but in reality, what we've seen on the ground, with people waving American flags and the things that they're seeing, and we're really seeing with the use of the internet. We talked about like the democratization of people and how people can use that against a regime. We literally just talked about that. With the internet, Cubans all around the country, and it really hasn't been planned. It's really just been from like the internet. Cubans seeing other Cubans protest. They've been protesting the tyranny that they've been experiencing.
My problem is when you start to see American flags in these countries, then there's got to be like Hong Kong. There's got to be some psyop involved. I don't know. Maybe that's just my paranoid Eurasianist take, Lev. But
yeah. Well, I mean, we can continue this next time, guys. Thank you for having me. If you guys want to check out shameless promotion, if you guys want to check out my channel, you can go. Daniel Idfresne is my name, the tag, as you can see. Pretty hard last name to spell, but trust me, it'll all be fine.
Daniel, you should change your YouTube to Daniel Defense, but Defense, have you ever watched the movie Falling Down?
I haven't, but
you gotta watch this movie. This is the Red Pill Manosphere, the movie with Michael Douglas. But the main character, his name is Defense. So that would be like
Defense.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
there you go.
But yeah,
So guys,
you can-
follow Daniel on YouTube. Please go for that. And this is it. This is the end of the stream. And also, of course, you guys have to let's see, what is this? Odyssey. Go to Odyssey. Support us on Odyssey
Our
as well.
backup that
Yeah,
will be there forever.
Support
hopefully.
Daniel, and also once again
Oh,
Patreon.com.
my YouTube channel. I'm gonna release. I just have to draw a banner photo. I think I'm gonna do the lion with wings for the first one.
Nice.
So.
Nice.
Let me post that as well. Everybody, go to YouTube.
Oh, my recent video. Yeah, the humans of flat design, the YouTube
Yes.
video. Yeah, that was kind of funny.
Please
I
check
tried
that
my
out.
best to avoid the words.
Here we
There
go.
you go.
Look at
Look
that
at that.
armpit. There's probably a whole civilization living inside that armpit over here.
There was back in the day. I remember that one YouTuber. I shouldn't mention his name. I'll get totally canceled. He had the one series. What was it called? The one Tumblr, like, where like they had like videos of like feminists. They like dye their pits purple.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Imagine the smell. That's all I gotta say. Imagine the smell.
Man.
All right.
Apparently, hair dye is really bad for you. Apparently,
It is. Well, that's why they call it hair
Oh,
dye.
see you, Daniel.
See you,
hair
Daniel.
dye.
It destroys the. Anyway, guys, this is the end. Once again, Patreon. And look, there may be some of you that have not subscribed right now. So please
Just look at the guests we're
subscribe
having
right now.
on.
Yeah, what's going on?
We're like the kill stream if Ethan Ralph didn't totally destroy himself and Randbot and Gator didn't like lick his gun crease and sorry, I shouldn't be talking mad smack, but well, not that he'll listen, but we're basically like if Internet Blood Sports was serious and didn't go the way of the dodo through their own infighting and nonsense and trying to, provoke people calling each other F slurs for an hour. That's not really, I mean, it's funny, but I mean, I got to be honest. I watch that stuff too, but it's not serious intellectual work. I'm of the opinion that we could bring anyone on and we could get a good stream out of,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But it's all up to you at the end of the day. So, guys, please keep subscribing, keep sending those super chats, become patrons. Thanks to you guys.
and finally, one last word by Hopper 8338. Kind of like, well, you probably mean Hans Hermann Hopper, but I mean like probably Edward Hopper. The Overman is the unification of order and chaos, the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning of the end. This is why I believe that Christ is the only true Overman. That's just my opinion, but I think that's a great response. But Hopper, next time if I'm going to read your thing, you better give us some super chats if you want me to read.
Yeah, exactly. He's
but-
probably
I know
probably
I'm
like
bad.
he's
I feel
probably
so
like
dirty extorting people like that.
No,
'Cause
no,
if I
well,
see
well-
something good in the chat, I want to read it. I don't give a shit.
Look, Hopper is
So-
probably like an actual grasshopper. Think of how much effort it takes for a grasshopper to jump from one
Right.
key to another.
like
type
that
it
Aesop
in.
fable, he had better save up for the winter.
Exactly. And with that, guys, thank you so much for watching. Oh my God, we got. Oh, okay, no, okay.